Hello, folks. Welcome back to the channel for something special this week. Kicking off our Tuesday stream, we are going to be joined with ArchaeoPlays, Pixlriffs, and Ulraf in a special server that ArchaeoPlays, Dr. Heather Christie, has set up. We're going to do a dig site in Minecraft 1.20.1, which is now out. And we're going to be following the lead of the real-life archaeologist. ArchaeoPlays is an archaeologist. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will give everybody a heads up in my chat that I may not be able to see all of the questions and track all of the convo because we're going to be in a four-way conversation on Discord. I've tweaked it, so hopefully you'll be able to hear everything that's going on. I will, of course, defer to ArchaeoPlays as a lead and follow their lead and see what's up. But we're really excited about it. It should be a lot of fun. And this is my first experience in 1.20 completely because the Citadel has not yet been updated. I'll give a quick shout out and thank you to Dan and Lambchop for the resubs, 27 and 40 months respectively. Thank you ever so much for the support, folks. If you do have questions related to Minecraft archaeology or real life archaeology, please throw them in the chat. You can use your Twitch channel points to highlight them. I may not be able to get to all of them because I then have to relay them to the rest of the Discord chat, but it should be fun and hopefully a pretty laid back stream. So I'm going to switch over to that Discord call, lean back, grab some snacks, and hopefully we'll have a fun stream exploring archaeology in 1.20.
Because I go on so many tangents.
Oh no, giving more ways for Twitch chat to bully us.
Yeah,
surely.
well, it's that I go on so many tangents, and so somebody in my chat pointed out that if you go on enough tangents, you end up with donuts. So I now have an emote, an animated emote that's just a little line going in tangents that eventually turns into a donut, and they do that every time that I'm taking too long to explain something.
That's very good. Well, you know, if you wanted more long-winded stuff to happen on stream, you've invited two podcasters to join you, so we're going to be here all night.
That's very true. That's very true.
I stopped listening after you said donuts.
Yes, well, this is the other thing. My chat now thinks that I do enjoy donuts, but I think my chat has a misconception that I eat donuts like every day. because I use donut tangent emote all the time. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't eat donuts every time I use the emote.
I wish I could eat donuts every day.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
We have small versions in Canada. We've got Timbits, which are
Timbits are good.
They're like the little donut holes, and so you can get a variety. You don't have to settle on just one flavor of donut. You can get all kinds but they're dangerous in the same way that popcorn is dangerous. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can sit down with one donut, or you can sit down with 50 Timbits, which is the equivalent of like 4 donuts, and they both vanish in about the same amount of time. It's like,
I grew up 40 minutes away from the first Dunkin' Donuts ever created. And so I grew up in Rhode Island, so there's a Dunkin' Donuts on every corner, basically. Like you're never more
like
than
Tim
5
Hortons
miles
here,
away from a Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, it's so I very much I actually worked in a Dunkin' Donuts for like a month, and it was the one I was in was not a good place to work, so I left after a month. But yes, I became very familiar with how to fill the donuts and such.
Was it a Dunkin' Donuts that there was recently a viral video of somebody like deflecting a chair that was thrown at them, or was that Waffle House? I forget. There was like,
oh wow,
there was
don't know.
There was some staff member behind the counter. There was like people were just kicking off, and somebody threw a chair, and this girl just like snatches the chair out of the air and throws it to the ground behind her. And I think maybe because it was like, you know, kind of aggressive conduct, she ended up like quitting or getting fired or laid off or whatever. But it was such a wild moment on the internet.
That's impressive. I don't know I could do that.
That's a boss move right there. Someone throws a chair at your head and you grab it and throw it out of the way and continue to walk towards them as you berate them, and just like, that would be the customer's cue to leave.
There's a lot of nods of recognition and people in my chat saying it was Waffle House. So
Waffle House.
It seems to be standard procedure at a Waffle House as far as chat is concerned.
I'm giving everybody 500 levels, not because we're doing just because in case you end up renaming stuff, it's like,
oh sure,
okay,
that way you don't run out.
That makes sense. It's like
Hello.
one level per rename. I think we'll be fine. Hey,
Hello,
Ulraf.
Ulraf.
Hey, oh, we are so pro with this level 500 already.
I know, right? Level 500 archaeologist is pretty great. If
Oh.
only, if only you could get to level 500 in real life that quickly.
Yeah.
But not aforementioned 500 donuts. So sad.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
500 donuts,
Oh.
unless you share them with friends.
Well,
But
the
they are
zeros,
donuts. So
the zeros at the end kind of look like donuts if you
that's
squint.
true. That is true.
If you're hungry enough, you're just gonna eat up those zeros.
Nice.
So we're here to do some actual some actual IRL archaeology, but in Minecraft in a weird kind of
Yes.
roundabout way. Yeah.
Yes, we're doing. Can we call this augmented reality? Does this or virtual?
Ooh.
It's somewhere in. It's an immersive heritage experience. Let's go with that. That's the academic buzzwords.
Nice. Yep. Love it.
Yep. I could turn that into a conference presentation somewhere, probably.
Amazing.
Yeah. So this was a random seed. And it happens to be perfect for what we're doing. Natural spawn is literally where you guys spawned in. It's right over there, and there are about 6 azalea trees in the surrounding area, for starters. But also there is a trail ruins that is that direction, not terribly far. I won't say exactly where it is because I'm gonna make you guys find it. but yeah. So I created a dig house. The main reason I made a dig house, is to not have a chest monster with all the stuff we might end up using, but also because there's often a little bit of it's not a misconception, but it's a little bit of a stereotype maybe that everybody often assumes that archaeologists sleep in tents when they go on excavations. And I don't know if you have ever shared a tent with a very sweaty, stinky human who's been in the dirt for like 8 or 9 hours a day every day for a month.
Only when I went to music festival in 2006.
I just came back 2 days ago from Sweden Rock, and I've done that for a whole
Yeah.
day.
There you
Yeah, it's not the most pleasant experience, but also because a lot of the companies a lot of the companies that run digs, or universities or museums, heritage organizations, if something goes wrong, they're the ones who are liable. And if you've got everybody sleeping in a tent, there's a lot more chance for things to go wrong. So generally we end up staying in houses, actually. A lot of the time they're really weird houses though. So there's not much in here. I just did this mostly for the archaeologists and for the non-archaeologists to see what this ends up being. It's very cramped. And I am notorious for building smaller than I should, but I didn't stop myself from doing that here because this is about how cramped dig houses get. If you thought there might be space that isn't covered by equipment or boxes, then unfortunately you are wrong. There are books in the bookshelves. Well, the chiseled ones, this one is just like enchantments and such, but the other ones actually have archaeology facts in them because I had time yesterday, and
That is so cool.
I decided to put in Easter eggs. So yeah, and then there's like a weird painting in half a hallway that's like a weird thing staring you down as you sleep, because I've definitely had that in more than one dig house. So so yeah, it's fun. So yeah, a lot of the time the dig houses are not terribly far from the site, or we have transportation to the site. Although I have worked in places where we've had to hike up a mountain before we could excavate every single day, and that was rough. I'd rather not do that again. But it does happen, especially if you're somewhere like Scotland where there are a lot of mountains. It can be a little difficult. But yeah, so the only other thing is that I've got gear for you guys, because you can go on an archaeological dig without proper boots or dig trousers or a safety helmet, but you're gonna regret it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I spent some time gardening this week without anything to kneel on, and my knees hated me for 3 days.
Yes.
So I'm all in favor of gearing up here. Let's do it.
Yes, there are kneeling pads. I can't use them in Minecraft, but in the UK we have kneeling pads that are usually bright yellow, and they're very helpful for digging stuff. so yeah, absolutely. So yeah, feel free to grab this stuff from one of the armor stands. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. There aren't that many enchantments on everything, but no, hang on. I need to actually turn away from the armor stand when trying to put things on. I know how to play this game. I'm a professional, I swear. The safety helmets you don't have to necessarily wear all the time, but it is something just to be aware of. Like, this is Minecraft. We don't nothing's going to collapse on us theoretically. But in real world archaeology, if you ever have your head below the wall of the trench and that wall is more than like a meter tall, you must have a safety hat on. Otherwise, you could get buried alive just for funsies. So, so just FYI, it's a thing. Yeah. That's all there is to the dig house, really. But I did, before we go from the dig house, I did actually make some backpacks for you all in what, as far as I can tell, is your
Oh. I might have
preferred
found
colors.
stalkers
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. That's
Jesus.
fine.
Must
Oh, that's
fill
perfectly
my
fine.
inventory with them.
Ulraf's gone wild over here. Just yep.
So yeah, I do have some for fines. So, but feel free to take as many shulkers as you want. There's also there's replacement shulker materials next to a block that I made stand in for a printer. So so behind one of the couches, there's a chest that has shulker shells and such in it. But in the box, I should actually just explain. Oh no, wait. Do you guys have one? Is there
my-
stuff in your box?
My box is empty.
There is stuff in this box, in the red one.
That's very frustrating
Ah,
because okay.
control.
All right.
click.
This is very frustrating.
So we can copy that, I think.
You can, but it's hang on. Okay, hold on. We can do this in an easier way. Here, have one. Let me just go into creative and shove it at you.
That'll do.
And we'll do that. Well,
Oh,
okay.
still empty.
No, really?
I think it's control middle click.
That's what I did.
Oh, maybe there's a bug with.
I thought. Hang on.
There's
We'll
so many
see.
shulkers everywhere, and I'm
Okay,
not
I know.
okay, that one has stuff in it now.
That one has
stuff in it.
stuff.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
Here you go.
There we go. Give me
I threw
the
another
empty
one on the
ones.
ground there. There you go.
Yeah, I'll get rid of the empty ones. I love how I had this all organized and they all had stuff in them, and then I don't know, maybe in switching to survival mode, the game was like, no, never mind.
No, you don't get that now. Yeah.
You don't get that now. Okay, well, you apparently don't get them in the colors that are your brands.
We'll pick some flowers on the way to our dig site.
Flowers. I mean, I could go into creative and get you some dyes, but you know, it's fine. Did I end up with yours, Joel?
You did.
I think.
Thank you.
Okay, so so in these, just so that everybody in the audience can see, there are two different pickaxes and two different shovels. One of them is Mending, Unbreaking 3 and Silk Touch, and one of them is Mending, Unbreaking 3, Silk Touch, and Efficiency 5. Because I figured it would be nice for us to dig this site so that you can see it from the top down, but that's obviously going to be a lot of stone that we have to dig through and possibly a lot of gravel. So the efficiency 5 is for those bits, and then the efficiency 0 ones are hopefully for ones that are a bit less when we're getting closer to the actual archaeology, we kind of want to go carefully
for breaking stuff that we don't want to break too hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's also a brush that has Mending and Unbreaking 3. You can enchant brushes at least with books. I haven't tried in an enchanting setup because I didn't have the time.
No, it'll be like shears where like they don't have any alternate enchantments, so there's kind of no point of putting them in an enchantment table. Yeah.
Exactly. There is also some concrete in there. I was thinking basically when we find a suspicious gravel, basically you dig out the suspicious gravel, you dig the gravel that ends up there after you've dug it, and then replace it with red concrete and then put a sign on it saying what you found there. And that way we'll have a lot of little markers across the site of what we've actually found. There's also some dye, there's red dye in there and glow ink, just if you want to make it glow. That could be cool. Part of the reason this was color coded originally was so that you could see which things you specifically had found if you were wanting to go back and look at that, or what specific things other people had found. So so we can go back and do that if you would like to be able to do that, because I don't know, the teacher in me is like, that would be fun.
Well, we just got to sign our work, you know. We just got to throw a username in there instead.
Yeah, or like a random letter, or put in a weird symbol. Yeah, there's also bottles of enchanting just for repairing tools if you need to. I don't know how long a brush will last in terms of digging. The others should be fine, hopefully,
Yeah.
but we'll see. There's also a book and quill that you can use if you want to write down anything. You don't have to, but a lot of people will have a notebook on site that they write thoughts in and such. If you are the sort of site director, the person who is in charge of the entire dig, oftentimes that person will have what's called a day book, and that is basically a log of what's happened on site each day. If you think about it a little bit like a captain's log, it'll be things like, oh yeah, today we dug this thing and this is what I think about it. And then there'll be an entry saying it rained all day today and I hate the world and everything in it. So they can be quite funny to read back, particularly if you're having to comb through the archives. There's also a compass. We don't necessarily need a compass, but it's useful in an actual archaeological setting. There are also some maps if you want to make a map. There's a spyglass if you feel the need to use a spyglass. There's also an elytra and rockets because these things are deep, and sometimes that's a way easier way to get out of them if you need to empty boxes or inventories or something. And then
That's
the goat
like a real
horn.
archaeologist. That's great.
Yeah.
Spy out.
Well, I was like, hey, if we're doing this in Minecraft, we're gonna use elytras. I don't get to use a jetpack on site, so yeah. And then there's scaffolding and a goat horn if you want to use it, and then the cookies are largely symbolic because we're on peaceful mode for everybody who's watching, mostly so that we don't have to deal with creepers and such. Because I just don't feel like dealing with them, basically, to be honest.
We've also set the weather cycle and the day-night cycle to
Yes.
off, so we don't have a day where it rains all the time and we hate the world. It was also
Yes.
because Joel logged in and it instantly started raining,
Instantly
so we kind of went, yay, we should probably just turn weather off. It'll be fine.
Inside joke. That's like the Citadel. That's exactly what happens on the Citadel.
That's
whenever I
true,
start
that
streaming.
is
It
true.
it rains all the time on the server, and I don't know why.
Okay, so why don't we head outside and we can start with something called walkover survey. This is basically an archaeological technique that is incredibly simple. Like you'll pick it up immediately. But basically, it's a very systematic way of finding archaeological sites, and I personally think that this will be the best thing for players to use to find trail ruins because they are so buried, and especially in places like jungles, sometimes I definitely have seen them where only one or two pieces of gravel are showing at all and the rest is in a bush. So so this is going to be the technique that basically helps you. You're gonna feel like it takes longer, but you'll know that the areas you've covered definitely don't have trail ruins in them. So you'll know what you've done, and you'll know what you haven't done, and that makes it a lot easier when you're trying when you're 3 hours in and trying to find a trail ruin, basically. So walkover survey is it's very simple. Basically, archaeologists stand in a line evenly spaced apart. I've got flags here that are about 10 blocks apart, and we just walk for like 200 meters, 500 meters, somewhere in there. And every time you see something that might be an archaeological site, you put a banner on it. So I'm going to give you some banners. There you go. And basically that's what we do. It's like this is literally it. So we're gonna basically, if each of you pick one of these banners that you can see, there is one further up the hill. I'm going to tell you right now that one is not going to find I'm going to take the one on the hill because I want one of you to be able to find the trail ruins because I already know where it is. There is also other stuff in here. I came on earlier and threw some very small archaeology sites down, so and also potentially some decoys down, so don't worry, there's enough for everybody to find. One of the downsides of archaeology, field school, and excavation is that the archaeology doesn't care if you haven't found something in 3 days or 6 weeks because it's the past. It doesn't really care about what your feelings are. So it's entirely possible to do an excavation and never find anything yourself. And in Minecraft, we can cheat that a little bit. So I am because it's more fun for audiences to see. So yeah, so pick a flag, and I'll go up to this one if I remember how to get up here. There we go. I
So
know how to play this game.
The story is that an archaeologist put this flag down because they think they saw something in this area, right?
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. Yes. So if we do this, when we do this in real life, basically what we'll do is every archaeologist will pace out 20 meters or a set number of meters. Here I've gone for 10 so that we can still see each other. But in archaeology, we might do 20 meters. So we know how many steps it takes for us to go 20 meters. And then basically we just form a massive line and we just start walking in the direction that whoever's in charge tells us to walk. As you're walking, you will find things like rocks and maybe holes. If you can get around it safely and still stay on your line, then you're encouraged to do that. But if it's not safe to, like if you're walking into a lava pool, then don't walk into the lava pool, walk around the lava pool. And that's true in real life archaeology as well, although I have never encountered a lava pool in archaeology.
Yeah. And if you do walk into a lava pool, you deserve to lose those 500 levels that we just gave you.
Exactly, yes. So basically all we're going to do is we're just going to walk, and you can go fast if you want, you can go slow if you want. We're going to walk in a straight line until I blow my goat horn, which I should probably actually have at the ready, shouldn't I? That would be helpful. And that'll tell you to stop, basically. And that's when we've probably reached the end of of the archaeology that I have put here / the generated archaeology that I know is in here. It is going to be a few hundred blocks, but again, you can cover that space relatively quickly, and you can feel free to chat as we're doing it as well. Like, this is not necessarily a silent activity. We're on a Discord call, which is nicer than when you're doing survey in real life, because because you can't really shout 20 meters to somebody else across the Highlands of Scotland. Doesn't work so well. So, does all of that make sense?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm pretty much following it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's just get started. We're just gonna start walking, and we're gonna walk in which direction is this? Hang on. What direction am I facing? We're gonna watch north. There we go. Walk north. I know how to talk. I have a PhD, I swear. Oh, yeah, see, I've got a hole. I'm not going to jump in the hole. And I wouldn't do that in walkover either. And it's okay if you're not exactly on the line, so long as you're in the, like, you don't need to do this with F3 open, for example. But it is helpful to try and stay generally on the line and spot some archaeology. And people in chat, also keep an eye out for some archaeology, because we might miss some stuff on the way.
And feel free to berate us if we missed the archaeology that...
As you're saying that, I think you missed over here. So if we find something, we mark it with a...
You put the banner on it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll go back through and we'll talk about each of them and put them on a map.
Okay, cool.
Do I remember everything I put down here? No, I don't.
I feel like this one is probably on Ulraf's line, so I don't know if I should really go and poach that one before he gets here.
It's okay. There are a few of them that are kind of between lines, because I didn't want all of them to just be directly on each of our lines. So yeah, if you see something, feel free to put it down. And also, if you see something that you're not sure of, feel free to put a flag, and then basically we'll discuss what everybody thinks, and that way you can have a better sense of whether it is archaeology.
So I'm behind you. I'm not sure if I missed my line or are you missing your line, but
I think I might have drifted slightly.
This is the danger. Yeah, so I'm more or less on my line.
So I'm not
just
sure
about
where my
here.
line is anymore.
Okay. So Ulraf, you're around X. X is around 20 for you, and Pix, it should be around 10 for you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So you can see how if you don't have a GPS system with you, it can be a little bit difficult to keep tabs on where people are. And so a lot of teams who do this professionally will actually give a GPS now to every team member, because it's just faster and simpler to do it that way. And if everybody has a GPS, depending on the system, you can just automatically mark a site digitally instead of having to worry about
flags
what am I saying?
off or something
exactly, like that. Instead of having to worry about stuff. How did I okay. I think I just got turned around, but I'm good.
It feels to me like you're doing a campaign for F3 here, which I'm strictly against, so we're gonna stop with Yes.
Oh wow. Okay. Nope. I ended up getting way turned around. That makes more sense. Like, what happened?
Is there a
I
marker
was
for the
talking.
end, or are we
There
just
is.
gonna go
Well,
forever?
no. I was gonna blow a horn, but basically, if you get to the frozen water, you're done.
Ah, okay, okay. I
I just
passed
ended
that.
up somewhere out by 85 or something. So this is why GPS systems are helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running
And
back to the water.
the ability to see everybody also helps. So yeah. So I'm gonna zoom up into creative actually, just so that I can see where you guys are
I have just
in
about reached
relation.
the frozen ocean now.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably potentially. Did any of you find a trail ruin, do you think?
Yes, I
Okay.
definitely did.
Okay, excellent. So if we come back to about where that trail ruin is, which I'm in the sky, if you need a thing, it's
I see you.
around. It's yeah.
Okay, so there is a flag over here. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's a trail ruin, but there is a flag here. Do we
Yeah.
want to explore it?
Okay, so this is the trail ruin. Hang on, where's Pix?
Oh, it's
I'm here.
definitely a trail
There
ruin
you
because
are.
it has us.
Mm-hmm. This is the trail ruin, so it's absolutely an archaeological site. The main way that you can tell for everybody watching is the gravel, especially if it's in a biome where gravel doesn't just spawn on the surface. Taiga, it's a little bit difficult sometimes because with the coarse dirt and everything, there can be gravel at times, but the gravel is a pretty good indication. The terracotta would be a really great indication, but it's not always visible, or it's not always easily spottable. So I would say the gravel more than anything else. Keep an eye out for gravel in these biomes, especially in jungles, because that's probably more of what you're going to see than than whatever the terracotta is, depending on the variant of the trail ruin that you end up with. So we definitely have one here. Let me get my maps out. I've got a few maps.
It's also really difficult to find these in biomes that have a high tree density because, like, you're walking 2 feet away from this, you can potentially miss it just because the trees block your view of it. So
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
you got to be a lot luckier finding those out in the open.
Jungles are tough to find these in,
Yeah.
especially the very sort of crowded jungles. Sparse jungles a little bit easier. Taiga like this significantly easier. So we do have a map. So I'm just gonna, oh gosh, if I can hang on, wait a minute. Can I put something in my offhand so I can actually see where I'm clicking? There we go. So we can map that. But before we deal with the trail ruin, yeah, let's go back and talk about anything else that anybody flagged. Did any of you flag anything else?
I didn't know.
Maybe like 3 other things.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back this direction and try to spot the flags. If you remember exactly where they are, that is helpful. I generally know more or less where they are, but I'm not going to remember all of them.
Not the flag. Okay. There's one up here.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like archaeology to me, but it looks out of place. So I was like, I'm gonna mark this.
Yes. So this is actually a really good example of something that could be archaeology, or it might not be. And we can't actually tell from the surface. Now, if you are on a server and somebody built this, then like technically it's archaeology because a person built it on a server. And so that gets into like a different branch of archaeology. But if we're talking about the lore of Minecraft, this could theoretically lore-wise be person-made, or it could theoretically be natural. We won't know until we dig it. So flagging it is a good idea because even though we're not sure, it's important to know where it is so that once we've got more materials and equipment and tools, we can come back and test and see if there's anything here, basically. So yeah, I'll snag that. I think I spotted another one over here that's probably a similar situation, if I remember what I've done correctly.
Over here maybe, or there's another one there.
Just here, yeah, there's another one over here. So again, this is something that's not naturally generated in Minecraft, but somebody may have been playing Game Master kind of situation like Pix has been doing on Empires and just be setting something up that's intended to be more of a natural setting, or there could be archaeology under it, especially because there is a cave actually literally right underneath these leaves here. So yeah, that's something we would map as well. It would be one where we're like, possible site, not sure, but yeah, that's good. There is also another site that I can see that I missed because I ended up out in the 80s somewhere. But this is a site right here.
Ooh.
I didn't. Oh, sorry, Joel. I just stuck that right in your face. This is basically intended to be like a crumbling stone wall kind of situation. It's some kind of wall, some kind of boundary. Stones don't normally just line up really nice for us. So generally, when you can see things that are shaped or things that have been put together in a really systematic way, even if they've crumbled, that's an indication that there's probably something there that's archaeological. It may be that just the wall is here, but there might also be some stuff along the edges of the wall, things that fall out of people's pockets, or we might find that this, used to be a sheep enclosure. That's a thing we find in Scotland a lot. There are sheep enclosures and cow enclosures, and there's actually a difference. If you go to the top of the hill and the enclosure goes all the way around, including at the cliff face, then that is an enclosure for cows. If it doesn't include the cliff face, then it's an enclosure for sheep, because they are smart enough to not walk off a cliff, basically. So
There's even sheep staying around. Look
yeah,
at
yeah.
that.
I saw a cow lurking in the distance when you started to talk about cows. They know, they've heard
Although
you.
there is also a wolf, so the wolf is like, this is a sheep area. I know to sit here and hunt. So we'll map this one as well. I know that there are a few more. I can see a flag over here.
Yeah, there was one that had a smoker over here that was
Okay.
next to a pile of bricks in this.
Yes.
general
Yeah, there's that
vicinity.
one as well. Yeah.
This
Okay,
one.
so it's over there. Let's start with that one. So this, yes, we've got a smoker here and then some bricks and a bit of wood. This, yeah, I was thinking, something like some kind of a shed, or maybe a small house, the remains of a small house, or just, somebody likes to come out into the woods and smoke some meat for a while. People are weird, so never put it past a person to have a weird explanation for why they do something.
Yeah.
Basically, if in fact, if your history doesn't have something ridiculous in it, I question the validity of the history, because humans are strange, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're smoking stuff, forest is probably a pretty good way to get wood chip. I don't know about the quality of it, but it's
absolutely
a lot of stuff around that you can smoke things with.
Yeah, there's a reason charcoal makers used to live in the woods.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. There's another one over here, just over this way. And this I was intending as a kind of a basically a turf house. In archaeology, we get a lot of stuff that is not earth fast. And what that means is that basically structures don't survive well because they're made out of dirt, or because they're made out of packed mud, for example, or because they're made out of literally turf, so like grass blocks. There are a lot of houses from Iron Age and early medieval Europe, for example, that are made out of turf, and you can still see some of these houses in use today. Some of them are still around, and also in places like Iceland, they actually are keeping that tradition alive to make sure that people still know how to do this, because it's an important part of maintaining these buildings once they're discovered and such. So in Scotland, we have a lot of groups in the early medieval period who use this kind of turf house, and it's very difficult to find anything about them because they just end up kind of eroding away. And this is groups from about like 400 to 800 CE. So the Picts, for example, if you've heard of the Picts, they had these kind of turf houses. So we can find the hearth for Pictish houses. We often might find the floor, but that's about it. We don't really get the walls so much. We get like maybe this much, and usually it's like a few inches. It's not very much for Pictish houses. So that's something to, I don't know. I'm just putting a whole bunch of archaeological sites, and mostly to illustrate that there are a lot of different things that you can find, and that could be archaeology sites or might not be archaeology sites. They might not look like much. And especially when you're going through the landscape before any of these sites have been cleaned up for visitors to be able to walk around and understand what's going on, there might not be all that much that you can actually see. So yeah, just giving a sense as well that the trail ruins that we're excavating, they are actually pretty accurate in terms of what's visible from the surface. You can actually find sites like that where there's almost nothing visible, and then, oh wow, all of a sudden we've got a small city. So yeah.
Out of curiosity, when you are dealing with a wall of a Pictish house that's only a couple of inches, how do you discern what was the wall versus what's just dirt around it if it's all dirt
That's an excellent question. And the answer is that you end up getting very familiar with dirt. So yeah, it's a little bit of a weird non-answer, but basically, so when you start digging, and actually let's maybe go over to the trail ruins while I explain this. I can't remember if there was another archaeological site, but I think we'll move to the trail ruins just now, which is back this way. So basically, you have to get a sense for what the natural soil is, and what the natural bedrock is. Those are the two big things that you need to end up doing. And I am a professional. I know how to navigate things in Minecraft sometimes. Where am I?
Right here.
Okay, all right, there we go. It's like I know I'm not far. I just don't know exactly which direction I am. Okay. The danger of hills. So basically, you have to start out by knowing what the natural soil is. So in Scotland, for example, in Perthshire, we have a very orangey gravel that is the natural soil for not all of Perthshire, not all of Scotland, certainly, but it's very orangey. It's a lot of gravel. It's all kinds of fun to dig in, and it's basically you end up knowing how to identify that. And so anything that is different from that could be archaeology. And if it's anything that's different to that, that is in like a linear form, for example, or seems like it could be in a linear form, then that's when you start thinking, okay, right, this is probably archaeology. In terms of turf houses, it's very difficult to do because they do just end up kind of blending into the dirt eventually. But the packed nature of the walls doesn't crumble away in the same way that dirt building up around it does. So you do still see the difference between the dirt around the wall and the dirt of the wall, if that makes sense. So how can I demonstrate this is there a way I can show this?
No, I think that makes sense.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So the reason that's important for the trail ruins is, oh, thank you. Yes. The reason that's important for the trail ruins is because and this is one of the really smart decisions that was made, not to boost Ulraf's ego, but to boost Ulraf's ego and the team. One of the really smart decisions that was made is that these trail ruins generate inside the generic Minecraft natural layers. So a lot of people have been a little confused as to why the trail ruins generate in so much stone, because stone forming around, like natural stone with no breaks forming around this site, seems unlikely. And I agree with you that it is unlikely. However, because cobblestone and stone bricks and gravel and such are used in this site, the natural stone around it, and even dirt is used in this site, the natural stone around basically is a clear signal to all of us that that is not archaeologically important. Natural stone, we don't need to care about it. So we can just dig it out and get it out of here as quickly as we feel like, basically. When it comes to things like dirt, there is dirt in these ruins. We are going to end up removing the dirt, but it's something where there's dirt. There's also coarse dirt. And I have thoughts on the coarse dirt. There's a part of me that wonders, and I'm not going to make Ulraf answer this, but there's a part of me that wonders if sus dirt might be a thing, because before the sus gravel all changed to, well, the sus gravel and the sus sand all changed to sus gravel, the amount of coarse dirt to dirt ratio was a similar ratio to the sus sand to sand and the sus gravel to gravel ratio. But as I said, I'm not going to make Ulraf talk about that at all.
It's an interesting theory.
Yeah, so that's
Mayhaps.
the things you notice. Yeah, either that is a true thing, or Ulraf is like, oh, that's an interesting idea, let me do that. So yeah, so because there's dirt and there's gravel and such, the natural soil basically allows the player to know they don't need to care about it. Same with diorite and granite generally. It's a little less obvious, or well, I don't know all of the variants, so I don't know if there are variants that use diorite or andesite or granite in them. There is like polished andesite in some of these, I think, but I don't think it's natural andesite. So yeah, what am I saying? Those natural stone types we can also generally ignore in terms of their archaeological relevance.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's going to be fairly obvious which blocks aren't going to naturally occur in Minecraft's terrain. So
Exactly.
we can remove those just to be able to look at whatever's left. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so let's get digging, shall we? Because
Yeah.
because it's been 48 minutes. So I'm gonna just start with the regular efficiency tools at the moment. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to end up doing what's called an open area excavation, which is just opening the entire area and digging all of it down to basically the end of this structure. We don't know exactly which direction this trail ruin goes necessarily. I mean, Ulraf might, but he doesn't need to. Don't worry about telling us. Because we don't know.
There is so much variation into this.
See,
I promise you, I don't know where it's going.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. So basically, what we do in archaeology is what we start to dig around what we know is archaeology, so that we have a border. So basically, if I start digging this dirt and then here, so that there's at least a 1 block border all the way around. Yeah. Okay. And then if you look over here, you can see that the site is continuing into what's becoming our trench wall, right? So because we want to expose the entire site, we're going to dig this out even more until we have that layer of natural between us and the wall. So you can see now it's still going into the wall. So exactly, we're gonna dig this out. Okay. And then we're gonna go down again, and we're gonna go down a couple of layers, and then we'll deal with the gravel and finds and such like that. And as this site gets bigger, there will be a lot more for each of us to branch out on. The main building is pretty tall, I would say, but then it usually branches into at least a few smaller buildings, and the main building usually has like 1 or 2 offshoots as well. Okay, so yeah, I'll say finish the layer that you guys are on, and then we'll talk about gravel and what to do with finds.
Well, Raph, if it continues that way, I was going to say you're going to have to move the dog.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
The dig dog, as we'll call it.
Yes, we in archaeology, it's very traditional to have a trench mascot. So feel free to name the dog if you want. We love dogs coming to the site. So yeah. Oh, I should. Oh no, that does use so. I'm just so used to my upper level pickaxes having efficiency 5 on them. I'm like, why is the ender chest taking so long to break? Okay,
we can move the banner. The banner can go.
Yes, we can also move the banner.
I was
absolutely.
just thinking about actually how happy I am that we have a non-efficiency one, because I could easily like destroy that gravel when I'm trying to clear the dirt.
Exactly.
Very smart move.
There is also a point where when we're digging down, there's a lot of stone that's going to be moved here. So I do have materials for a beacon. Because we might want one at some point. But that is also another reason why we have an efficiency, a non-efficiency set of tools, because efficiency 5 with a haste 2 beacon, you will tear through this and all of the sus gravel like nobody's business, and it will be very sad. I will also warn everybody, just in case you haven't dug one of these before, for those who haven't, there in this site, you will lose some sus gravel. It will happen. It's inevitable. You can't avoid it. Like, it's physically impossible to avoid. It's not like you're not being careful enough. There are certain places where it's physically impossible. So there, in some of these structures, the edges of them or in places around them, they'll have stairs or slabs or non-complete blocks, basically. And if suspicious gravel generates above those, then as soon as you update that block in any way, the sus gravel will fall and break. So there's, as I said, there's no way to stop that from happening. So just be aware of it. It's also something that happens in archaeology. We don't generally just like having stuff fall or break, but it does sometimes happen on site, especially if you're doing sampling. Like if you're taking like a core of the earth. If you've ever seen people do ice coring, like geologists, where they kind of have a machine that goes deep down into the ice and then they pull out a whole little stick of ice that they can look at and a stick of earth. We do that in archaeology as well. mostly when we're looking for sites, and it definitely happens where you're doing that and you just hear a crunch, and you've run into some pottery and broken some pottery. So yeah, it's inevitable. Try to avoid breaking the sus gravel, of course, but for the ones that you can't avoid, don't feel too badly about it, even though the noise will make you sad.
Yeah, it makes me really sad in Minecraft. I don't want to imagine how heartbreaking it is in real life.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. It can be, yes. That's all I can, yep, there's, It gets real sad. So, what I'm gonna do, although actually here, I have one of these. They're all the same color, but I'll give one to each of you guys. I have finds boxes, and I've made them green because on the sites I've worked at in the UK. Hang on, Ulraf, let me actually launch this at you. There you go. At the sites I've worked at in the UK, the finds trays are always green. So they're like the little garden planter boxes, those kind of things. That's where we end up putting our finds when we take them out of the ground, but before we've necessarily put them into a bag or something. So a lot of the time when you're digging, you'll take finds, you'll put them into a tray, you'll write out all of the information to go with it, and then you'll just kind of leave it there. Particularly in places like Scotland where it rains all the time, you don't want to put wet pottery or wet metal into a bag that doesn't have any air holes in it. So because it'll just help it rot away, and that's not good. So we often will leave it in the tray to dry. Obviously you don't have to do that in Minecraft, but since your shulker boxes are full of tools, I figured an extra shulker box to put stuff in was probably helpful.
So right now we're all using efficiency 0 tools to carefully dig around this trail ruin. But a question from my chat was, in real life, at this stage of digging around the perimeter, what tools would you be using in real life?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Okay, so for the bits that are around the site that we know of, that would be shovels and mattocks and wheelbarrows. So it would be like spades, shovels, and mattocks. Mattocks are a cross between a pickaxe and a small axe, kind of. Well, they're kind of an axe and like a hoe. It's like a wide. Well, they can be a pick as well. They're two-sided basically, and one side is kind of flat along the horizontal plane, and one side is flat along the vertical plane. And mattocks are basically, you lift them up and you drop them down, and they do all the work for you. It's a lot of back-breaking work. It's a lot of heavy earth removal, and usually the first few days of an excavation are taken up with removing that kind of dirt. If we know that a site, like if we had done geophysics here, like if we'd used some various types of technology to figure out where the site goes underground, so say it went off that way, then because we know that there's nothing at this level on that side, we might get some construction workers in and get them to bring a digger in and just dig it out for us. We also will sometimes do that when we're packing a site back up, because we have to put all the dirt back when we dig a site, which you don't have to do in Minecraft, but you do have to do in real life usually, is put all of the dirt back in. And so we'll often also get like a tractor or a digger, not to put the dirt in, well, sometimes to put the dirt in depending on the site, but also to like wheel over the dirt to compress it so that it goes back to at least roughly the same level that it was at before we dug it out. So yeah, that's what we would use. And then once we start exposing it here, like we've now got the gravel and things, this is where we would start using a trowel. And for a visual, well, I can show my chat. So if anybody's watching on multi-stream, you can see this, but in archaeology, we have trowels. They are basically the same as like a builder's trowel that you would use for like masonry work. There's a lot of debate between archaeologists about what the best style of trowel is. British archaeologists, oh, as I hit my mic, sorry everybody. British archaeologists like this trowel. It's about like 4 centimeters long. It's got thick edges, and you can do a lot of scraping in gravel with it without hurting yourself, basically. So that's what we use. American archaeologists have more like a 5-inch blade that is a lot sharper on the edges, like they will sharpen them a lot of the time when they're digging. And so there's that style. There's also styles in a lot of Eastern Europe where it's a triangle. kind of trowel. It's a whole discussion among archaeologists, just as an FYI. But yeah, we use trowels most of the time when we're digging through materials.
I think
where
we have a
we need
lot
to be
of
careful.
we have a lot of digging to do. Maybe we talk
We do,
while
yes.
uncovering.
So I was basically going to explain with the gravel. The gravel that is regular gravel, you don't need to pay attention to, so you can just dig that out as and when. And I would recommend starting at the top and going down layer by layer. For sus gravel, it's the brush situation. So just in case any oh, that's not where my tools are. Hang on. Just in case any viewers haven't seen the archaeology mechanics, you use a brush in archaeology to uncover stuff in suspicious gravel. So this is suspicious gravel, and the first thing we find is a wooden hoe.
Yay!
Yeah, so that's fun. I know a lot of people are disappointed by wooden hoes, but I actually really like that the wooden hoes are in here. So yeah, this is, and there's more sus gravel there, but let me do this and just do wooden hoe. Right?
By the way, I wanted to say one thing about the you were saying that some is unavoidable. And I am like, I agree with you. I think it's okay to it's good to come with the mindset that you're not gonna get all of them anyway.
Yeah.
I want to say it's not. I don't think it's a reasonable expectation, but it's not impossible. The thing I thought, we have another one. Let's see what's happened. It's wheat.
A sheaf of wheat.
Hey, nice. All right. So we've got farming tools and farming results in this building so far. Seems like a farming theme.
Yes.
So are you saying it's not impossible to save it?
So what I'm saying is that so let's say you're a master Minecraft archaeologist. You dug out so many of these that you basically know a lot of the pieces already. And when you see the top of them, you can recognize which piece you're gonna excavate. Which I think might be similar to real life. Like, you know the type of structures an area has, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
And then in that case, you can know where there are not full blocks. And then dig in a way that doesn't update the thing above first.
Oh, how would you do that?
So I think I haven't tried it, but my theory was maybe you can break the stair and place a block below before it falls. Like as at the same tick or something like that.
But if you dig the block next to the gravel to get down, okay, so you'd have to go like out a few blocks. Yeah,
exactly. Again, it's not an expected thing.
No, I think it's interesting because
you're talking about like the level of experience that people have, where like if certain bastions generate a certain way, speedrunners know exactly where to go to get the gold and then trade with the piglins.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's possible, but definitely not expected.
Well, archaeology speedruns when, guys?
Exactly.
The other thing is, I have noticed when I stream or when other people stream, because we're concentrating on a number of things while streaming, there's also a higher risk of breaking sus gravel while streaming because you just didn't realize it was there and until it was too late, kind of thing. So that's also a thing that streamers more have to be aware of. But if you're watching streamers and they break something obviously in front of you, it's probably because they've got a lot going on in their heads and they might not have actually noticed. So yeah. Okay, so we've got a few more sus gravel over here. Does anybody else want to grab some?
I'd love to do one.
I'm going to add these to my finds box. I have wheat and white dye so far.
Oh, I see that. I see the sus gravel now. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that? We got.
Is it a
disc? It's the disc. Yeah.
It's the relic disc.
Oh man, I wasn't even daring to hope that we would find one of those today. That's pretty great.
Let's put a marker.
Yeah.
So I can try this one here.
Yeah, go for it, John.
Yeah, absolutely.
See blue?
That looks like some more blue. Well, not more blue dye, but it looks like more dye of the blue variety.
Yeah, blue dye.
That's cool.
So
very cool.
Is that gravel's now turned into regular gravel?
Yes. So now you can treat it like regular gravel.
Right.
Yeah.
So I find one of the quick ways that I've been checking is by pick blocking, and if it turns out that it's gravel, it just pick blocks gravel in my inventory.
That's a smart way to do it.
And so then I'm just like,
that is a smart way to do it.
because I'm nervous about destroying suspicious gravel in front of an archaeologist. Really, that's.
Don't be. I have destroyed suspicious gravel in front of my chat, so it's fine. Don't worry.
And the suspicious gravel being completely unobtainable kind of makes that a very smart way of checking it. Yeah.
Yes. And where did the one that was the blue dye, was that?
That was me.
Here?
Sorry. That was right.
But
it was right here. I'll put it down. I remember where it was.
Yeah.
I'll put the red block down. That was my bad. There you
This
go.
also, just as an FYI to people, that happens in real life as well, where archaeologists find something and then we have to remember where we found it. A lot of the time, this is one useful thing for trowels. Because trowels have a point on them, you can basically put them on the dirt, pointing at the spot in the dirt where you found it, and then go off and show everybody excitedly what you found, and then come back and your trowel is there. There is a rule among archaeologists that you do not touch other people's equipment unless they have given you permission, because their equipment might be covering something, it might be keeping something safe, or it might be marking a location. So yeah, that's more fun tricks of the trade that everybody should know. Okay, so yeah, let's start digging out this bit.
I'm definitely seeing
Yeah.
the place where beacon will be helpful here. That's
Yeah.
We have one shaper armor trim over here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Managed to
That's-
find that on the corner of this one.
Maybe
here.
let's put a
that's
find
cool.
box like here, and we can just put
Mhm.
everything in it.
Yeah,
till
if we
close
wanna.
up.
Yeah, here.
Should I play the relic for us while we're working?
Absolutely.
You could,
I was gonna suggest the same thing.
I'll switch my music off for now.
I had that. Oh yeah, I should also switch my music off.
So I've got some suspicious gravel that's heading in to an eastward direction.
Okay.
So we're branching out from what we had
Over this
established
way.
as the
Mhm.
perimeter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Exactly. So this is where we're gonna find that we need to start expanding the trench. And as Ulraf was just saying, like, this is where the beacon is gonna come in handy, because we know, for example, that out this direction and up, because of the way that these generate, there's nothing archaeologically relevant from about like here up, right? So we can just dig that whole thing down once we know what the boundary of this is.
Oh, okay.
So what I'll do is I will set up that beacon. The only thing is we don't know which direction. We might have to move the beacon.
We can just give ourselves infinite effect if you want.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's a much simpler way of doing it. That's much easier. Why did I? Yeah. Okay. All right. Are you doing that, Ulraf, or should I?
Yeah. I
Okay,
can do that.
cool. Just didn't want to have both of us doing it at once.
This music disc, and I mean the additions to the soundtrack this update have been fantastic anyway, but the last
I love
couple
this
of
music disc.
the last couple of updates I've used the music disc that was added as the outro song for the survival guide, and I was absolutely going to use Relic this time around because it's such
Yeah.
a jam,
I
such a
almost
good
broke
track.
stuff. Sorry. I got
Hey.
stressed. The
Yeah.
speed is dangerous.
Yes. So this is why the efficiency 0 is helpful, and it is like just a tap on on the natural stones, because otherwise you might run into terracotta really quickly, or sus gravel, which is the more. Oh, sorry, I broke the scaffolding. We're engaging in slightly unsafe work practices. It's fine. We have Elytra.
We've got the hard hats
we're
on.
good.
We put the hard hats on.
It's
It's
true.
fine.
We put the hard hats on. It's all good. But yes, if you're ever on an archaeological site and safety is not a priority for the team, I would say run, don't walk out of there. It is not worth having something collapse on you, and it does happen. And there are people unfortunately who have died on archaeological sites.
Wow.
So it's yeah. There was a young woman last year actually who was a student who was attending her first field school, which is basically where archaeologists learn these techniques, and she didn't have enough breaks to drink water, and she died from heat stroke.
Wow.
So yeah, so don't ever let somebody make you feel like your safety is not a top priority, because it is.
Hard.
Yeah.
It's like when I was hiking in Utah, and all the signs in the
which one?
parks had warnings on them, basically saying like it's not our fault if you're dumb and you fall off a cliff. Don't be a cow.
We got the heart shard.
Nice.
I ran a poll in my community about the best Minecraft pottery shard.
I was gonna ask you which one won. Yeah.
The Mourner one.
Okay.
Which
sense.
I was kind of expecting, but it was going up against Danger, and a lot of, myself included, a lot of people really like that the Creeper one is called Danger. So, so what was interesting was that there were a lot of front runners for first place, and then in a lot of the groups, it was like second and third place were neck and neck and trading back and forth the entire time. So, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, Heart was one. Basically, a lot of people really like a lot of these shards. Pretty much every single. Oh, I got another Heart shard. Okay, so in this part of the building, there's a lot of romance happening.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going with. That's my theory so far. This is also absolutely something we do on site. We make theories. Sometimes they have merit to them, and other times they don't. But it's fun to do while you're digging in the dirt for hours at a time.
I found a green candle over here, so we've got, that's been added to the finds box.
I've got a loom and a bunch of bricks and a lot of suspicious gravel down here. I put a couple of banners just so that we don't, because our perimeter is expanding now.
Yes.
Away from where we were before, so we've got to be careful about what we do from probably about here down, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's start getting let's start figuring out this perimeter, because it definitely expands in a big way.
So I found the green candle as well.
You found a green candle as well.
In Minecraft, we're obviously
was being used for.
We're giving ourselves some extra blocks here because sometimes Minecraft feels kind of claustrophobic. But what would be the natural meter distance that you'd go out from a dig like this? Like if this was something you had found in real life, how much room around it would there be? Would it be a couple of meters? Would it be like 10, 20 meters? Like what would be the...
So generally speaking, if we're doing something this large, like a structure, it would probably be around, because it's a structure and you want to be... I've got dirt raining down on me.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Don't apologize. I'm an archaeologist. I'm used to it.
Safety helmet.
Yeah, exactly. If we've got a structure, we'll generally go a little bit further out a lot of the time. So probably like 5 to 10 meters between the where we are and the edge of the trench, but it also really depends on how far down the structure is, because there's only so much earth you can move, and unlike Minecraft, you have to put it somewhere. It can't just go into a shulker box, which, by the way, I do have. If anybody needs additional shulker boxes to stick stone and dirt and such in, feel free. In archaeology, we have to put that somewhere in the landscape. It has to go somewhere, and so if we're the more you dig out of a trench, the more dirt you have to deal with around. A lot of sites end up being in, say, like a farmer's field or something. And so when we dig in a farmer's field, we compensate the farmer for all of the crops that are damaged in digging their field, because that's their livelihood. And we can't really, like, if you're digging in a field of barley, that's the farmer won't allow you to do it if you're just going to dig up everything and not compensate them, which is also just like an unethical thing to do anyway. So in situations like that, we're trying to minimize the extent to which we're digging stuff up unnecessarily. But also, yeah, it kind of depends on the excavation method as well. So we're doing open area excavation, as I mentioned, which basically means we're taking a large area and we're making all of it open to the sky, and it's encompassing the entire site, and we're just looking at what's there as we go. There's also a technique that is more often used in North America, or in places where North Americans have like a history of doing archaeology, and that is called a box grid, where basically instead of doing an open area, you do something like you have like a set box, right? So I'm doing an example over here if anybody wants a visual. So you've got like a 2x2 square, and then you leave a square in between, and then you do another 2x2. and then you keep doing that. So you have this line in between that's called the bulk. And the bulk is basically just to give you an idea of what's going on with all of the stratigraphy, or the layers of the soil and the dirt and the rock as you go down. Open area excavation, rather than doing just boxes around, you're sort of focusing on the structures. So what we might do when we find a smaller structure is like section it, which is basically cutting it in half almost, and digging half of it, and then leaving the other half so that we can see what the archaeology, what the stratigraphy is. And that happens. It really depends on what you're looking for, what you're looking at, and what questions you're trying to answer about a specific site. If that makes sense. I hope that all made sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it seems like it varies a great deal depending on the circumstances, right?
Yes. Oh no. No.
You break?
I broke some cyan terracotta. It's fine. I put it back. It's all good.
Okay, I've done that with white terracotta a couple of times now.
Okay, good.
Chat,
All right, yeah.
The magic of
nothing.
Minecraft.
Chat
You saw
is sworn
nothing.
to secrecy.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
always one of the digs I was on. We were digging on Iona, which is a rather, well, it's a fairly popular destination in Scotland, because it's one of the earliest sites of Christianity. So there's a monastery that was there and such. So we were doing a dig to try and find the monastery, and because it's a popular site for visitors, our trench was on full view for the general public, which is a really great thing for people who are curious about archaeology. But it also means that if you screw up at all, everybody can see it.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a thing that happens.
I found a friend shared.
Yay!
Nice.
The friend shirt also was a lot of people's favorites. Really, every shirt. Sorry, go ahead.
Xylephian is saying that this structure, they tried to do farming, they failed because they only have seeds. So they pivoted to making homemade candles.
Yes, that's entirely, yep, that makes sense to me. Absolutely.
I do love that there's a story you can kind of piece together, and you can just figure that stuff out as you go along.
Yeah, it's really great.
This is where a Minecraft headlamp would come in very handy.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
Do we know anyone that we
really
could talk to
useful.
about that?
No, absolutely not. Never heard of him.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, guys! I have Xylephian in chat. We can talk.
Yeah,
to him.
no, absolutely. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Put in a good word for the headlamp idea.
Delegate, Ulraf, delegate.
Oh,
Okay.
Do we have one more shared? I really want to make a pot. Let's find one more.
Ooh, yeah. I don't know if we have another one quite yet, but we definitely will by the time this is done. There's so many sherds in these.
About that, actually, I'm kind of curious, how common is it when you get a variety of sherds that clearly came from the same thing to attempt reconstruction? Like, I assume that's, I assume that's kind of like something you're doing the jigsaw kind of thing. Does this piece go with this piece at the time? But then, like, that has to happen under more controlled circumstances, and like, if stuff is able to be cleaned and like maybe examined off site, or does that all happen like in a kind of field office?
It happens in the dig house initially, actually. So I have often been a finds specialist. So somebody who specializes in making sure that the things we find make it back to whatever institution they're going to intact and safe, and also non-contaminated, preferably if we're wanting to sample any of them for something like charcoal residues and such, or food residues. So a lot of ceramics. Ooh, I found a ladder. Which we never find in Scotland. That is not something that survives in Scotland.
Ulraf,
so that's cool.
We have another shirt.
Which one is it?
Which one?
This one is the heart one again.
Another heart one.
Oh,
yeah.
So our pot is gonna be 3 hearts and a friend.
Oh, that's perfect.
It's like the most wholesome thing.
Very sweet.
This is so when we get pottery on site, basically what we'll do is we'll set it in a finds tray with a bag that has all the information, like on top of the bag rather than in the bag, because that'll damage it. And then we take it back to the dig house, and usually I will wash the pottery that we found that day, like that evening. And it's something where it depends on the pottery. Some pottery you cannot put in water at all. It will just crumble. That's usually like Neolithic stuff. So like late Stone Age, later Stone Age, from basically from when farming was invented until the Bronze Age. That style of pottery is not, it'll just crumble basically if you put it in water. But other stuff, especially if it's glazed and such, or if it's like wheel thrown and fired pottery, certainly, that you can just take, you know, with a hand and stick it in a bucket of water or under a tap, and you just gently rub off the dirt. And weirdly, some people will use a toothbrush, but you can do it with your hands, and it actually, you can tell really quickly when it's clean from the dirt. It feels very different than it does when it's dirty. So, oh, I found a crafting table. Sorry if that was loud in anybody's ear. I was excited. So
I've got
fun.
something else you can be excited about. I found some purple glass in one of the this is your specialist subject from what I understand.
It is. It's my specialist subject. Would you believe that I've only found glass in the ground like twice? And one of those times was finding a lot of broken beer bottles from the 80s in a site in Glasgow.
That sounds like what I found in my garden when I was digging my vegetable beds.
Yeah. It's purple glass is fun because purple glass is relatively rare, but also relatively common. And some of you may have noticed, because I'm a glass specialist, I threw some different colored glass in the window of the dig house. There's pink and magenta and purple glass in there. So basically, to make purple glass, you have to add manganese. For ancient glass recipes, you have to add manganese, and even small amounts of manganese will just turn it this like really deep purple color, and to a point where, like, in reports, people will say that a piece of glass is black/pink. And you sit there and think, how could you possibly be confused about the difference between black and pink colored glass? But it's glass that looks black until you shine a light through it, and then it is hot pink. And it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and it's pretty great. The reason that window glass will turn, if you've ever been in a building that has window glass that has been, like, it's old window glass, it's been there for a couple hundred years, a lot of the time it'll turn pink to purple, and that's because in ancient recipes for glass, they could not actually make clear glass. You couldn't get all of the color out of the sand. So when you make glass, you make it from sand, as people know playing Minecraft. But naturally, sand has a lot of iron and copper in it in different levels. But generally what that means is that as you are making the glass, the iron and the copper color it like a pale green or a pale blue. So that's why a lot of sea glass is like the same pale green color. That's what glass is naturally colored when you make it from the sand in a furnace. And to make the glass clear for windows, manganese, tiny amounts of manganese will turn glass pink or purple, and pink/purple cancels out green to human eyes. So that's how they would make clear glass prior to like the 1930s, basically. But as glass gets exposed to the sun, it oxidizes like copper does, except through sunlight, instead of oxygen. And so basically the oxidization of the manganese turns. Oh no!
No. Oh.
What?
I heard it. I felt it.
Yeah, no, that was one that could have been avoided, and I was distracted talking about glass.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I feel like I'm partly responsible.
Not at all. See, the other thing is that when you do that in real life archaeology, you can still pick up the pieces. It's not as easy to do, and you can still salvage it, whereas here you can't. I'm sorry, everybody. You can take away my archaeology license. I'll leave now. It's fine. No, but hopefully that gives everybody a little bit more permission to not be so down on yourself when you accidentally break one as well, because like it happens. So yeah, don't worry too much about it. But yeah, so that's why glass in the ancient world wasn't clear, and stuff that was clear was actually just kind of canceling out. And believe it or not, glass actually oxidizes, and that's why you see purple glass in old buildings. Ta-da!
That's pretty fascinating, to be honest. Like, by the way, I found a hanging sign in one of the things, and so I added it to the side of the block instead of putting a regular sign there.
That's
so
pretty great.
Just a hanging sign that says a hanging sign. I might write that on the back as well, because you can do that now.
Yeah. Hanging signs are such a game changer.
They're very good.
Remind me, what are we doing with the coarse dirt? Are we leaving that in the...
No, I would say dig that out.
Oh, okay.
Just because there's, it is a different... So if we were doing this in like a super archaeologically accurate way, we would be taking a lot longer. We'd be here for weeks, which is why we're not doing it in the super archaeological way. But basically, every time that the thing you're digging in changes, so say you're digging in the gravel, you've got a patch of gravel, that would be what we call a context. And a context is basically just a patch of soil or stone or something, basically. And you give that a number, and you keep track of that number. It ends up in drawings and photographs, and when you find stuff in it, part of the information for the find is what context you found it in, so what bit of dirt you found it in. And basically every time it changes, that's a different context, right? So, and that's vertically but also horizontally. So for people who are seeing my screen right now, if I'm digging this gravel here, that's one context. The sus gravel that's here, technically, because it's sus, it would technically sort of be a different context, although you could lump it together because it is Minecraft and there's a lot of wiggle room. But the dirt would definitely be a new context, okay? And this dirt would be a different context to this dirt because they don't connect. So people who've followed my chat or my streams a bit, you guys will know this. If they don't connect, then they don't get the same number. So you end up with a book that just has like a million numbers for different contexts in it. And the coarse dirt, the reason this matters for coarse dirt is that those would definitely be a different soil type to regular dirt. But because we're digging in Minecraft and we're not dealing with context numbers, because I would like us to have a normal bedtime today, we don't need to worry about the coarse dirt so much.
Okay, cool.
As somebody who would also like to have a normal bedtime, I am incredibly appreciative of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is impressive how big this is.
Yes.
Like I'm now heading, what is it, south?
Yeah.
And it just keeps going.
And we've gone in various different directions, and the notion of opening all of this to the sky has kind of it's going to need a lot more excavation from the top down, I think.
Exactly. We'll do that maybe once we have it. I mean, well, anybody can feel free to do it whenever you want. If you want to break from staring at gravel, feel free to stare at stone for a while. But also we can feel free to do that sort of digging once we've got the perimeter and we know that we're not going to run into stuff that's that's a little bit that's archaeologically relevant and that we might be nervous about breaking.
Yeah, I guess if you feel pent up and you need to let loose and go up top and just start.
If you need the digging to happen faster for a while, you can go up at the top and start digging down. Yeah, hang on, my inventory is full. Do I care? This is as an archaeologist, I should care. This is the thing. Like, the archaeologist in me is like, of course you do. This is how it works. But the Minecrafter in me is like, nah, don't really feel like dealing with all of the stone.
Yeah, it's just saying that, talking about wanting the digging to go faster. So years ago, when there was just the first explorations of what archaeology could be in Minecraft and learning around it and stuff, I had these sort of pillars that sort of outline the vision of what it should follow and what's the intended feel of it. And one of the biggest pillars there was that, unlike a lot of other things in Minecraft, this is intended to be slow.
Yeah.
So basically in Minecraft, like, progression is always faster, right? You get better tools to go faster, you get a beacon to go faster. And here, there was even a point where we are playing around with the idea of better brushes should be slower, and somehow that's better, right?
Yeah.
And that got scrapped for simplicity's sake, but still the point that we have efficiency 0 tools is because they're useful here, and I think that
Yes.
was really core to the vision, that in archaeology you could come with a, how you call it, a shovel, not a shovel, like a huge machine with a,
like an excavator, like a
Exactly.
JCB digger kind of thing.
Yeah.
right? You could come with that thing and it will dig it a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But it definitely won't achieve the goal you want. So that was really part of the vision here, which is really cool.
Yeah, I really like the mechanics that were put in to make you go slower and more carefully. I think they're just brilliant. So I like it a lot. Anyway, sorry, Joel, I was interrupting.
No. I'm noticing now that something that we were talking about earlier, where once the trail ruin changes directions, you can usually be pretty solid in knowing that it's not going to matter what's above that. But I'm now traveling back up compared to being down at a lower level. So I think that slow is really the way to go, because I mean, I could have just gone at this wall with the efficiency 5, but now we're going, like, I was down here and now I'm gone back up by what, 5 blocks maybe, I think?
Yeah.
You know?
This is really interesting because a lot of the time, this is interesting because a lot of these I've found roads basically that you can follow the road until it stops. But I'm not super convinced. We may have a road in here because we're not quite at ground level, but I'm also not entirely sure that we do have an easily identifiable road, which is interesting because I think the ones in the snapshots there were roads pretty consistently, so that's fun. And I'm also seeing, like, a lot of these structures, again, I haven't actually dug one since they were changed with the snapshots, because I was like, I don't want to spend too much time in the snapshots and then, you know, have a sense of how these things work that isn't how they work, if that makes sense, for when things change. So I haven't actually dug in them. And one of the things I'm noticing as well is that a lot of the structures are less solid and less complete than they necessarily were in the snapshots, at least for this one that we've got, which is really interesting as well, and also really cool. One of the things that a lot of players were talking about was that the ruins didn't feel like ruins because they just seemed out of place and like a jumble of blocks put together, and that is absolutely the fault of archaeology for not making it clear that ruins generally look like a bunch of blocks jumbled together, at least how you would build them in Minecraft. But I really like that these variants are effectively leaning into that and basically being like, no, this is just how it decayed. This is how it is. And it's not necessarily an easily identifiable, you know, I mean, we can tell that this is a structure that I'm walking around here, right? Because we've got walls, they're the same color, same pattern. So this was definitely a structure, but in terms of the exact shape of the structure, like the shape of the roof, we can guess that this half of the roof was similar to this half of the roof, but we don't know for sure. And until if we don't find any documents that say that, then we can basically only ever say that we're making that assumption, but we never will know for sure unless we find another building that's identical, for example.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not exactly the same in real life, right? Like, because no structure could be perfectly the same. But I love the idea that if I find enough of these, I could start sort of rebuild the structures in my head because the holes are randomly generated. So again, it's not the same as in real life, but I feel like it's like a representation, right? In real life, you slowly learn what the architecture looked like by looking at enough of them.
You can kind of superimpose them on each other mentally until you end up with a complete picture. Yeah.
I found an armor trim.
Yay!
Nice.
I found the Wayfinder armor trim. Wayfinder? Yes. Okay. Just making sure I hadn't like completely read that incorrectly.
Oh, I ran out of signs. This one is a gold nug. I'm gonna leave my brush here. Don't touch it.
Okay. I will not back up. That's cool. Yeah, I really like that there is enough similarity between a lot of these structures that you can start to get a sense of what these civilizations were like, what these peoples were like, and not just with the trail ruins, but also with the ocean ruins and the desert pyramids and even the desert wells. There is a unifying structure to them, or unifying kind of culture to them, and it's really cool to be able to see those similarities across the different sites, which is what I plan to do when I make YouTube videos about archaeology in 1.20, is basically excavate a bunch of them and say, like, you know, what are the patterns that we can see in this world between the different trail ruins. I do have a question, Ulraf. I noticed in the version of the trail ruins that I dug in the snapshot, the main building was shaped like a bunny, and I'm very curious if the trail ruins, if there are main building structures like other animals as well, perhaps maybe a panda or something.
So one of the, talking about the pillars of this, is one of the main things with this is it was very important to me that anything we go with doesn't have we are not the holders of the truth for it.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah,
so basically,
I like that.
If
I
you
like
think
that a
it's a
lot.
bunny, in your world it is a bunny.
That's
and
cool.
I'm excited for you to find the panda structure.
Is there
But
one?
no, I'm saying in your world. I did not approve anything.
I will
I'm
make
just...
a panda structure.
Exactly. I think I started a while ago when I was in an SMP. I started a project where I was going to literally deconstruct ocean ruins and build them back block for block on land, and sort of do like an investigation of them and trying to reconstruct how they are when they're full by finding enough of them and stuff like that. And I think that is such a fun project to do, to just investigate them over time like that.
Yeah,
and I love that that's something like Minecraft supports.
I mean, I ended up recreating an entire bastion for an exhibit for my survival guide museum in season 1, and that took a while because so many of the blocks are meant to look run down and decayed, and they're huge. So it was an undertaking, like the amount of and I didn't do it with like Matica or anything like that, which I absolutely would have if I had known about like Matica at the time. And so like I'd seen it done, but I kind of thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to get that into my vanilla survival world. And it was an undertaking. I felt physically tired after I'd finished that.
Okay, so I think we're starting to get a road here. The cobblestone, once you start hitting the cobblestone and the stone bricks cracked or otherwise, that's when you start hitting the road. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the thing is going in this direction in general, right? Like, because we have an offshoot here and there, but they're maybe done. We haven't found the end of the
road, I've got cobblestone all the way over to here. I'm not sure if you can see me where I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Usually they go in a single direction, so it's like the main structure covers what feels like 3 buildings worth of space, and then there's a road that goes in one of the directions, and that's where the other buildings end up being, basically. So it makes sense that Joel, you're finding a lot of cobble out that direction, and Ulraf, you're not seeing much of anything out this way. But yeah, I would say dig until you hit natural stone in the bottom, basically.
Yeah, that's what I
like
did
you've
over
got
here.
the Ulraf, exactly. Yeah. And then we'll do the same thing with the cobblestone as we go. Because the other thing about the roads is that they're not on a single level. They will like rise up or rise down depending on the structure. Yeah, they're not all on the same line, which is really cool. Or the same Y level, I should say, just for clarity.
If we're going to get a server restart, it said in 5 minutes, is that going to be a good time to maybe like take a break, go refresh water and that kind of thing?
I think it would be a good time to introduce you all to a time-honored tradition, at least in British archaeology, which is called a tea break.
My favorite.
I know. You get a tea break at usually between like 10 and 11, and then you get lunch, and then you get another tea break at like 2:30 to 3:30. So that's a fun thing to know. If you do archaeology in the UK, there will be a tea break. I don't think that the wheat seeds were anything I dug up. I don't remember digging up wheat seeds.
Yeah, I found some beetroot seeds earlier, but
I did find some beetroot seeds. Yeah. So why don't we take like a 5-minute break, And thank you to everybody in chat who's been tuning in. I'm sorry that we haven't necessarily been paying attention to the things you're saying, but feel free to keep chatting. And if you do have questions, feel free to put them in chat. We will do our best to see them. We might not necessarily be able to, but I will say you can, if you have archaeology questions, you can send them to me. I exist on Twitter and such, so there are in my chat, I'm putting in my social media links, and also a link to my Discord server, just in case you're wanting to do any of that. And also, I would highly recommend, if you haven't already, following all of these three lovely people on their socials and YouTubes and Twitch and Discord and Spawn Chunk stuff, etc. Because if we can't shamelessly plug ourselves, then it's
yes. Where you should start with the Spawn Chunks if you want some more of this is episode 211, which ArchaeoPlays was a guest on. Really fascinating conversation before all of the archaeology stuff was more fully developed. It was kind of the early days of archaeology in Minecraft.
That episode. That was a good episode.
We didn't even know that it was coming in this update. I remember finding out that archaeology was being added, and I felt really badly because Pix, you were on holiday, but I was like, I need to warn him.
Yeah.
So I ended up just saying, I don't mean to alarm you, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a good day finding out archaeology was coming to Minecraft.
It was a good day, I agree.
Yeah. It's a good update. It's really cool. And the other thing to remember about the archaeology stuff for everybody who's watching is that, and I'm not going to make any promises on the team's behalf because I can't and I'm not part of the team, but I think it's important to remember that if you're sitting here feeling like there isn't enough in the archaeology update, which I'm going to tell you as an archaeologist, this is more archaeology than I've seen in any game ever. So like there's a lot here. But if you're still feeling like, oh, well, trail ruins are a little difficult, I don't know if I want to deal with drowned in ocean ruins, there's a lot of scope for adding more archaeological sites and more sus sand and sus gravel in more sites in the future. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in every single structure that you want it to happen in, but this is a whole system, and so it's entirely possible for it to expand. Just as a thing to remember. I'm sorry to everybody for standing on the fines boxes. I'm being a wonderful fines officer, just trampling on the fines. It's fine. But yeah, I think
you took the words out of my mouth though. That's really good. Like the point was to make it as a system, and as anything in Minecraft, nothing is ever done, right? We can always iterate and add more in the future.
Exactly. And the same is true for the armor trims, which is if you're interested in the spawn chunks and you happen to catch my episode already, I would highly recommend watching this week's episode where Pix and Joel discussed the notion. Oh yeah, we should.
There we go. We got kicked.
Whoops.
It's all good.
But anyway, where Joel and Pix were talking about how the armor trim system, for example, is an expandable system. It's not necessarily going to go into everything in Minecraft, but it is something that has that scope, and it's something to remember that, if you're not necessarily feeling some of the armor trims, this isn't the last time that armor trims will ever be added, probably. So just things to keep in mind with this update. There are a lot of systems that got added. But anyway, since the server is kicking us and such, why don't we take a 5-minute break, and everybody refresh your water, have something to drink, because at least in the UK we are dying in the heat right now.
Get up and stretch, get something to drink, and
get up and stretch, get
take
something
care of
to drink.
yourself. Take
medications if it is a time of day where you're supposed to take medications, for those of you who are chronically ill like I am. Yeah, we'll see you guys in about 5 minutes.
All right, folks. Thanks ever so much for all of the follows. I see we've got a new sub from Lewas. Appreciate that very, very much. Hope you guys are enjoying the chat. Dr. Heather Christie is so knowledgeable and so easy to interview. You ask a question and you get a vast answer. And I hope I can get to most of the questions that I'm seeing popping up in chat. But if I don't, as they said, you can always hit them up on Twitter. They're also part of the Spawn Chunks community, so if you are a member of the Spawn Chunks Discord, then you can always hit up ArchaeoPlays there. I think they're also in my Discord. I'd have to double check on that, but I'm pretty sure that's a cross Discord situation. And I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to put up some music in a BRB screen and encourage all of you to grab a snack, grab a friend, introduce them to everybody here streaming on Twitch this afternoon with me. Those links are usually in the chat. Cosmic is ever so lovely, making sure that the shoutouts are up to date. Thanks again for the support there, Cosmic. Appreciate it. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. right, let's log back in, continue the dig. And once again, thanks again for being here, folks. I know it's a different stream compared to what I normally do, but I think it's really interesting. Hopefully you do too. And again, I'll point you towards the Spawn Chunks podcast at thespawnchunks.com for more conversations like this with both Mojang developers. Dr. Heather Christie was on episode 211, as we've mentioned. And we've had some other people from outside of the Minecraft space on the show, and you can usually find those in the archives on thespawnchunks.com. I should probably also undeafen.
That's amazing. I have friends who are American who live in Scotland, and they've had children in Scotland, and their children will speak with Scottish accents to all of their friends, but American accents to their parents.
Incredible
and so they just switch back and forth. And they're Puerto Rican as well, so they also speak Spanish.
Oh wow, incredible!
It's like, yeah, it's pretty great. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a combination.
When my family visits here, they get very bemused by my accent switching. It's actually a linguistic phenomenon. This is a different part of anthropology, but I can go on a discussion about this as well, because linguistics is a thing, and I used to write a dictionary about a language at one point in my undergraduate career. It's something called code switching. So basically, and it's not just for accents, it's also for dialects. So if you say you live in Scotland and you speak Scots a lot of the time, when you talk to somebody who is American, you're not necessarily going to use Scots. Or if you are, talking to your parents, if you're in America and you're talking to your parents, for example, and this is not an America specific thing, but it's a definitely America thing. If you're talking to your parents, you're a lot less likely to swear. But if you're talking to your friends, you might swear quite a bit. So that's called code switching. It's just changing the words and the way that you say them depending on the situation that you're in. And we see it a lot more frequently with people who are multilingual or multi-ethnic, multicultural. But everybody does it. So it's actually a fun phenomenon that you can't necessarily turn on or off. It just kind of happens. Your brain just does it for you.
Yeah, my partner occasionally tells me that if I sounded like in normal conversation to them like I do on stream, then they would have filed for divorce years ago. It's like the presentational energy that you affect is a form of code switching, and it's like that's the kind of thing that I couldn't do in my personal life, because talking to people, even with the relaxed kind of energy I have on stream, I'm trying to be like more precise with the way I talk and a bit more vocally present. They'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, this doesn't feel natural at all.
I've been called out before going through airport check-in lines, like something that feels very formal and very important, and saying like, thanks very much, have a nice day, that kind of thing. And then the person with me kind of goes, okay, Mr. Podcaster, like what? Why did you say it like that? I was like, I didn't even realize it,
Yeah. Or like teacher voice. Teacher voice is definitely a thing that happens. Teacher voice, parent voice is also a thing for those of you who are parents. I'm sure you're aware. I get my Scottish accent will change in strength depending on who I'm talking to. So my husband will say, like, if I'm talking to somebody in the NHS, like a doctor, or if I'm talking to somebody at a bank, basically somebody who controls important elements of my life, my accent gets very Scottish very quickly. And sometimes taxi drivers, it'll get very Scottish with taxi drivers. And why? I can't change it. It just happens. I have tried to control it, and it just leads to even more of a jumbled mess of words coming out of my mouth than already happens. So for all of our sake, I use whatever accent comes out at the time. But it was weird. It was one of those things where when I started making YouTube videos, it was a conscious decision to use the American accent, not because I don't like the Scottish accent, but because it can be very difficult for people who are learning English to understand a Scottish accent. And I didn't want people for whom English is a second or third or fourth or fifth language to just be completely confused. I'm using a lot of jargon in my videos anyway, and I explain them, but there are a lot of new words that I use in my videos, and I wanted to minimize people's confusion, basically. So the American accent made sense. But it's not the accent I use every day in Scotland, which is a little weird.
I spend quite a lot of my time just trying to create a neutral accent because I really don't like my accent of origin.
Oh.
Now just people when they guess, I get a variety of guesses from French to American to even British, which I don't hear personally, but I've gotten that.
I always love it when people come into my streams and ask if I'm Australian, and I'm like, do I really sound Australian to you?
Australian?
I think I sound like the most British person ever. I feel like I'm like just the advert of a British person. But no, I don't know. It's just sometimes people like have a difficulty hearing accents, which is something that I think I grew up around enough sort of silly voices and stuff, and like just different people's accents, but people imitating accents and stuff like that I kind of picked up on what it takes to make an accent, even if I can't accurately reproduce it myself. And so that's kind of like it's never been a problem for me to recognize people's accents, unless the culture is one I'm less familiar with, or I've just not heard somebody from that region speak before. But it's so funny to me that people can't twig that I'm British, because it feels like the most obvious thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
I get a mix sometimes. I think sometimes I get mistaken for American, but then after a little bit of my chat, people are just like, "You're not American. Where are you from?" And they'll try to piece it together, or although they will put me in, like Ohio or Maine or somewhere, which is not like it's pretty close geographically, in terms of the eastern, northeastern U.S. That kind of thing.
You get Minnesota vowels every so often.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I've got another armor trim.
Nice. Which one?
Host.
Host. That's cool.
Do I know which one that is? No. I have paid very little attention to the armor trims, not because I don't want to, but because it's one of those things where I've been paying so much attention to the archaeology that I wanted to leave a lot of the rest of 1.20 to be explored when 1.20 came out. So I know the armor trims exist. I think they're very cool. I don't know which ones are which. Whereas the pottery sherds, I know which pottery sherds are which.
Well, I think do we have all of them now, or do we have, not the pottery sherds, because there are like 20 of those, but do we have the, all of the armor trim that we get from this place? Because we got 3 at least.
We have Host, we have Wayfinder, and then
I found the Shaper one.
The Shaper one.
Early. And so I think it's Razor is the last one.
Okay.
So maybe we don't have that one yet.
It's possible that we find all 4 in this one Trail Ruins, which would be impressive.
Chat would be excited.
Oh no!
What? Did we break one?
I broke one.
No, it's fine.
I broke one. Was it up top? I don't know. Don't tell me, chat. Don't tell me how badly I screwed up. I'm gonna go dig not near some sus gravel. See, even archaeologists mess up. It's a thing. It happens. It's sad when it happens. It's not nearly as devastating in archaeology sometimes, usually, but there's only so much Minecraft can do.
Oh, another heart one. That's the 5th, I think.
That's so many heart
We've had
shirts.
loads of those. Yeah, the
So
people around
many.
here clearly had a lot of love to spread around.
Yeah, this, I feel like this, it could be an actual, like settlement, or it could be a soap opera set piece.
It is a reality show town.
Yeah,
is what
I
this
feel
is.
like, or like a stage production of, I don't know, some kind of it's Romeo and Juliet.
The Bob Ross Trail Ruin, just a happy little dig site, right?
Just a happy little dig site.
Too dark in here.
Yeah, I can see why you'd want to daylight some of these digs, because like I'm just constantly having to put torches down to see what I'm digging to make sure I'm not digging up something that's not suspicious gravel,
Yeah. It's that's another reason why having it exposed to the sky helps, but that is a lot of digging.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It takes a while.
Another tick for the headlamp, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Headlamps are useful things.
I mean, and Minecraft tends to lean a little bit on the medieval side, but like, I mean, I know what a cobalt is. I know I can't take the candle. I think that would be an excellent way to bridge the gap from technology to usefulness.
Absolutely.
Shout out to all my World of Warcraft fans in the chat.
As a medievalist, I fully approve of medieval things ending up in Minecraft.
Oh man, I cringe to think what you might be thinking in my chat when you hang out in one of my streams when I'm building West Hill. It's like,
no,
it's all
you're
wrong.
Fine usually. No, you're fine. Also remember, I do like very specific early medieval stuff. So there's a degree to which castles. I studied the period before castles really happened.
Okay.
We're in the hill forts age for me, hill forts, and also like the Picts. So I do a lot with the Picts. And you know, I've been shamelessly plugging things. I'll shamelessly plug more stuff. For the last like year and a half, I've been working on a project called Carved in Stone. Thank you, Clara, for putting that in my chat. I've been working on a project called Carved in Stone, which Pix, you might be interested. Well, any of you might be interested in. It is a system-neutral setting guide for tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or 13th Age, and it is for the late 7th century in northeastern Scotland. You get to play as the Picts, and I have been the lead researcher on that project. We are starting to get artwork done. It's really exciting to see all of the spreads coming together. And basically, this is just a setting guide. So there are no like specific like D&D rule sets or anything like that. It's literally just like, this is the setting, and there's also an adventure that is going to be in the final book as well, where you are trying to help a blacksmith prove his worth to the king. And there's a lot of shenanigans that go with that. And the king in question is King Breedy III, or Breedy MacBilly, who is the king who fought at the Battle of Nectansmere. If you've ever heard of the Battle of Nectansmere, you may not. If you're not an early medieval Scottish specialist, this might be very niche. But the Battle of Nectansmere is where the Picts fought the Northumbrians and got control of southern Pictland back from them, basically. So, oh, sorry, somebody just put. Sorry, Ulraf.
I will light it up for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a very interesting setting, and one of the things that's been really interesting, and Ulraf, actually, you may well have run into this in a slightly different way for, well, you and the team, for the various sites that you're doing in Minecraft. There's okay, how do I say this? In archaeology, we are very, oh gosh, this is a structure. We're very content to say when we don't know something. We'll be very honest about it and be like, yep, we have no idea, and we have no way of knowing right now, so we're going to leave that there and we're going to move on. And we leave that gap of knowledge because there's no reason really for us to say much if we don't know anything about it. But if you're telling a story, or if you're trying to tell a story, if you're engaging with people in a storytelling way or in a video game sense, they don't necessarily, you can't just have gaps in the places where you might want, where there might have to be gaps because of research. So the things that we've been dealing with is, what do we say in those moments where we don't know what the answer was for the Picts, but we still have to tell the players something that they can do in their game. And on the one hand, that's been really, it took a little while to figure out what we were going to do there. But once we figured it out, it's actually been really kind of freeing in terms of being able to have a bunch of stuff in this setting that maybe is accurate to the Picts, maybe isn't accurate. We have no way of knowing, but it lets players explore different themes in new ways that I'm really excited about as a longtime player of tabletop RPGs, and a GM as well. It's exciting. I'm excited about it, and you can pre-order it right now if you follow the link in my chat. So
cool.
Or you just Google Carved in Stone. It's very cool. It's very, very cool. Yeah,
my chat just keeps getting confused by the fact that you keep saying Picts, and I'm like, no, Picts with a CT, yes, not with an X.
CT. You know what's also fun is that if you tried to Google the Picts, P-I-C-T, in a Scholar, like if you go to Google Scholar and you type in Picts, P-I-C-T, and you're trying to figure out literally anything about them, so it's like any noun plus Picts, it assumes that you mean pictures, or a very specific like medical biological thing that is PICT. I have no idea what it stands for, but I know that it is a thing that Google thinks I mean, that I definitely have never meant. It has been my life for a year plus.
So I just saw gravel, and I immediately dug it, and when, like, after brushing, I mean, and then a gravel fell from atop. And if that was sus, I would break it. And I was like, I am so silly, why am I doing this? And then I noticed you are here, and you did the obvious reasonable thing of going up and starting from here.
This is, yes. The only reason I do this is because the first time I was digging a trail ruins, I started doing the same thing you just did, and then the same thing happened, and I was like, oh no. So now I start from the top.
That's exactly why the mechanic of it falls, it breaks.
Exactly.
That's why we put this mechanic in.
Yeah,
right?
it's beautiful. It's a fantastic mechanic. And this is a thing, like a lot of people have seen my video where I was talking about the shards to sherds thing, and how sherds is the correct term. And another thing I said in the video was that like we use brushes in Minecraft, but a trowel is more what archaeologists use. This is why I say that those two things were far more of a nitpick compared to what the system actually is, because the simple fact that like the way that sus gravel works, I would take that any day and have pottery shards and brushes than to have pottery sherds and trowels and not have the mechanics of sus gravel. I like the sus gravel, sus sand, they're beautifully done. And I've never seen a video game do it like that. And it's really cool. And yeah, I think when I found out what they did on stream, I was silent for like a solid minute, just like jaw hanging open. It's a clip on my channel, and my chat likes to remind me of it. But it's really, really cool, and it's not something that you see in video games. A lot of video games, it's like, you know, destroy the pot and you get what's inside, and it's like, yes, but then you've also destroyed the pot. And I really loved that this focused a lot on the destructive nature of archaeology and how difficult it can be to really preserve everything. So yeah, now that I've gushed about how great this system is, it really just is though. Like Ulraf, you and the team deserve so much praise for this, because it's just really cool. And it's really cool to see that like the best selling video game of all time has done archaeology like this, because there's so many times where archaeology doesn't get represented terribly well in video games or in media. So to have such a big game do this, it's, yeah, the archaeologists have come out of the woodwork in support of it. So I don't know if you and the team have seen that, but I've seen it. Oh my goodness. Archaeologists are all over the place getting really happy about these mechanics. So yeah, it's, anyway, I'll stop singing praises, but the praises deserve to be sung.
I mean, you had that story a little while back about how this is in one of your videos, I think, where you mentioned the fact that the realistic like beekeeping stuff was added to Minecraft to an extent, and the fact that like the honeycomb can be made into candles has changed whenever you talk to kids at like museums and stuff, and you ask them where you think they get all the wax from to make candles, and now they know that wax comes from bees because of Minecraft, right? Like
absolutely,
it's one of those like really early ways of teaching kids about like just basic facts about the natural world that you don't necessarily you kind of take for granted.
It absolutely is, and it's really interesting because I have more stories like that. I mean, I only put one in the video because I didn't want to spend the whole time telling people stories about museum education. But I've worked in museum education for 20 years, and most of that has been with school groups. So like school-age children, primary school, basically, well, primary school and some secondary, basically kids ages like 5 to about 13. And when you're teaching kids stuff on a farm, you know, like another story is that we would do a module where we were talking about how people made clothing in the past, and so we would talk about wool and where do you get wool from? You get it from a sheep, and how do you get the wool off the sheep? You know, I've got my sheep. How do I get the wool off? Because it's attached to the sheep. And I had one 5th grade boy who was so like age 10 or 11. He shot his hand up and goes, "Oh, I know, a machete." And I smiled and said, "Well, I see where your brain is going. However,
if you're Danny Trejo, maybe."
It's like, if you were that sheep, do you think you would appreciate a machete coming at your stomach? And he was like, "No, that's very true." Like he instantly got it. I was like, "But you're really close. What do you know? Think about it again." And then he just like face palmed so hard. And this was like 10, 15 years ago. He face palmed so hard. Well, it wouldn't be 15 years ago, but still face palmed so hard. And he goes, "Oh, You get it with shears. I should have known that because that's how you do it in Minecraft. And I was like, yeah, that is how you do it in Minecraft, buddy. I'm sorry. So yeah, like with that, they knew that's how kids know. Or like, how do you harvest wheat? Kids know that you can harvest it with a scythe because in certain video games, that's how you get wheat. Like and there was a friend of mine works in libraries, and she was doing this was literally like this last year. She was doing a program at schools here in Scotland, and they were talking about nocturnal animals, and there was a group of first graders or primary twos, I guess, so age like 5, and she asked the group what kind of animals come out at night, and this one little boy goes, zombies. And she doesn't play Minecraft, so she was very confused. And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, I bet that little boy plays Minecraft because zombies come out at night in Minecraft." And she was like, "Oh, that makes so much more sense." And it turned out that was exactly what it was. He was talking about nocturnal creatures in Minecraft. So yeah, the kids learn so much from so many things. And the shift from earwax as candles, sorry everybody, but I'm gonna say it even if Pix spared you. Earwax as candles versus beeswax as candles, that shift was so obvious when it happened, because it was literally like night and day, and it's just kind of wild to see.
Yeah, I think that's that. I'm sorry. I'm happy I don't have a face cam right now because all the time you were talking, I'm just blushing and I can't really move my
You
lips.
deserve it though.
But us as a
Yeah,
team, of course.
exactly.
But yes,
You as a collective, I'll use the Scottish term,
yeah,
Yous deserve it.
it was so important to me that I just remember the time before I was working in Mojang, and I remember the change. Do you guys remember the change that was done for parrots, where they originally had them eat cookies, and then
Yeah.
that
Right,
was
yep.
changed to seeds. As a player, and I think a lot of players sort of don't like that change and don't understand that. And me as a player, I was half saying the same things like, "Oh, it's just a game. Why does it matter?" Right? And you could say the same about archaeology or anything in Minecraft. Why does it matter? And then when you get here, you sort of see the amount of people that you have impact on.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
this really matters. Like
Yeah.
the same with parrots, the same with frogs. I got dozens of messages privately from pet shop owners saying, listen, people already make this mistake and they hurt their pets, right? Like I thought when just starting to design this, I played like dozens of video games and mobile games and so many games that are like themed around archaeology, or I mean archaeology, paleontology, and all the ologies together.
All of the ologies, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that was so important to me, that the Indiana Jones part of this, the traps and the excitement and the action, that's been done so many times. And it was so important to me to show the world sort of the other side of this. We have an opportunity here, like you say, to teach children, to teach the world, right? This next generations of people, something that they didn't get a chance to see before. And I'm honestly so proud that thank you so much for your comments.
Yeah. Every semester when we bring in a new class of first years to teach archaeology, and I haven't taught in a couple of years because I'm chronically ill and I can't guarantee that I will be able to teach on any given day. But when I used to teach, and certainly still, we ask them why they chose to study archaeology, because it helps us understand, what they're hoping to get out of it. And a lot of them will talk about, movies that they saw growing up that inspired them to study archaeology, or sites near their home that they want to learn more about and stuff. And a lot of them do talk about popular culture in terms of that being a reason why they want to do archaeology. So what I'm saying is, Ulraf, I don't know if you've realized this or if you and the team have realized this, but like in the next few years, starting in the next few years, there will be people going to university and studying archaeology because there was archaeology in Minecraft and they liked it.
Oh my god.
Like that's
Oh my God.
I know for sure that will happen. That is not even questionable in my mind. Given what I know of students and how they come into archaeology, that's absolutely going to happen, and it may already be happening. Or it may happen like this semester. There may be students who decide to study archaeology because, actually, it was kind of cool seeing this thing in Minecraft, and they decided to keep it going.
That's incredible. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't speak.
I'll stop heaping praise on you and the team. I promise. I'll stop embarrassing you.
No,
This
I'm
water.
just, yeah. There's a lot of things that are sort of like not exposed to the outside and all the things inside and stuff, and like we've all been waiting for this to be released for a while.
Yeah.
It's been tough on the inside as well. Like it was like, and I'm so proud to be here, and I'm really happy about it.
Joel, I noticed you just found a pottery sherd.
I didn't want to cut anybody off, but I found the Howl pottery sherd.
The Dougie.
And
we got the Dougie.
So where are we putting these? Does this just go in my find box, or are we putting them somewhere specific?
Yeah, you can put it in your find box. You can put it in any of the. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know where the find boxes are. They still over by the scaffolding?
They ended up by the scaffolding, on the way out.
Yeah,
I think we might have enough for another pot. I made one pot from the ones we had.
Yeah,
very nice.
I think we have a few more. I apologize for all the stone everywhere, but I decided to start like opening up the surface a little more. Now we have an idea of the scale of this.
Never apologize for digging. It's
I mean, it's what we've been doing so far on the stream anyway, but I just it's less the digging and more just the leaving stuff everywhere that's going to line people's pockets in a second.
Oops,
I stopped picking up stone as well. I had enough of it.
I will also say, for anybody who's wondering whether finds boxes end up halfway up a wall in real life, not quite, but it's not as far off as you might think.
Yeah, metaphorically speaking, perhaps. Yeah.
Oh, I picked up a gold nugget from somewhere, but I don't think I dug that.
Oh, maybe the inventory was full.
You got any nether portals around here? Did a zombie pigman come through?
That's fine.
I don't think it was me.
I'm guessing somebody else might have dug it up. It's fine. This is another thing that happens in archaeology, is that sometimes you find stuff like this gold nugget. This is now a stray find. That's what we call a stray find. It is a find where we reach the finds boxes and we realize we don't actually know where it came from. This happens more often than you would like to think, or than we like to admit necessarily, and it happens all the time for glass beads, which is my actual, like, my specific specialty. I love glass beads. They're a long distance trade item. So they're actually one of the most popular long distance trade items in the entirety of human history. They're super important, but they're also super tiny. They're mostly less than a centimeter in diameter. In fact, most glass beads in history are called seed beads, which I can get some examples out for people in my stream or who are watching in the multi-stream. Let me find. These are not real archaeological beads, these are replicas. I do have one real archaeological bead in my possession, but there are reasons for that. But these...
because reasons, you don't get to know any more than that.
It's legal, is all. Well, okay, so technically it was a bead here. I can get that one too. Where is it? This was a bead. This was a bead that was found in a survey, basically. So when archaeology is done, when people want to build a building, there has to be an archaeologist brought in, certainly in the UK and also in the United States, also in Canada. There are a lot of countries that do this, where archaeologists need to be brought in to make sure that any of the construction isn't just destroying archaeology in the way. And if you have been paying attention to the news, potentially you may have seen that there was a case this week or last week in France where a company just bulldozed over a stone circle that was like 7,000 years old.
Wow.
To build a DIY store. And the community is furious about it, so that store is not going to stay in business long, probably. But yeah, so in the reason that is such big news is because it's actually illegal in most countries to do that, and so it's clear that like somebody got paid off to allow that to happen, which is why it's such a big story. And also 7,000-year-old stone circle that's just been bulldozed, which is absolutely awful. So a lot of archaeology happens when construction is going to happen somewhere, so that we make sure that either we don't dig in somewhere that is really archaeologically significant, or if there is something there and we need to build stuff, because you can't just rope off the entire nation because there's archaeology there. There's archaeology everywhere. A lot of the time teams will go in and dig everything before the construction happens. So basically they're going in and salvaging everything that's there so that when construction starts, they're not damaging anything. So the bead that I have in my possession is a bead that was found on one of those sites, and they brought it to me. It's a nice, here, I can actually maybe get it out for people.
They dug a part of the structure. No.
I was like, that was either a I'm falling noise or a something has broken noise. Yeah, so it's this lovely bright blue color. But basically they sent it to me, or they showed it to me and said, what do you think about this? And I was like, well, based on the color, it's probably closer to modern than like medieval. And this was found in the spoil heap, or the topsoil. It wasn't really, they don't have any context for it anyway. So basically, as soon as they found out that it was probably closer to like 19th century, they're like, oh, okay, we have a lot of those. so if you want to hang on to that, we don't have space to care for it really. So I was like, all right, okay. So that's why I have this in my possession. And this is a normal thing that happens. It's not like, this is not a bead that is missed necessarily. It is not undocumented. It's all there. But that's why I have it. But also why I also don't have other beads in my possession at the moment, because there are rules and regulations about what archaeological stuff you can have just sitting in your house, basically. But back to the beads, because I've started on a bead donut tangent, which is the largest of the donut tangents, and I promise I will not keep going for 3 days straight, but I could, because like I wrote a PhD on beads, guys, so it's like 700 pages. I could go for a while. But anyway, seed beads, the most common bead size is this, for those of you who are on my stream. They're called seed beads, and they are less than 6 millimeters in diameter, usually about 2 or 3 millimeters in diameter. And the bit that I was just showing you guys, these right here, there are about 250 beads on this string. So that's 250 objects. Imagine 250 sus gravel. That's what we've got on this string here. So that's why they were really important trade items, because you could travel with them really easily. You can fit 250 on a single string that I can fit in my pocket. In fact, I can fit multiple strings in my pocket. And the nice thing about seed beads is that they're monochrome, or they're a single color. So basically you can bring a whole bunch of a single color of seed beads to wherever in the world you're going, and people there will decide that they like beads of a certain color and they will trade for them. And in fact, seed beads were one of, because there are stories. I have a story to tell you about this. All right, I promise this is the last of the glass bead donut tangent. But they were so important that we actually have records where a European captain of a ship that was traveling in the 1500s, they made it around Africa and they were going to India, but they had run out of supplies. And so they ended up at Madagascar, and they had a bunch of yellow seed beads, and they're like, okay, well, let's see if we can trade some stuff for some supplies, some food for the seed beads, and then keep going to India. And so they went to the locals and they were like, well, we've got these beads, and we've got like a knife or something. And the locals were like, yeah, but do you have red seed beads? And they're like, well, no, but we have yellow ones. And the locals were like, yeah, but do you have red seed beads? Because we don't care about the yellow ones, we like the red ones. And they were like, well, no. So they're like, well, we're not trading you anything until we get red seed beads. And so the guy goes, well, where can I get red seed beads? And they're like, well, we get ours from India. And he's like, but I'm trying to get to India. So basically, the end result was that he and his first mate had to row their rowboat from Madagascar to India, pick up some red seed beads, row back to Madagascar, trade the red seed beads for some food, and then sail their ship back to India. And we know this because the captain wrote one of the first ever travel guides for this part of the world that is written in a European language, I should specify, because and that we've discovered there's easily plenty of stuff that could come about in the future. But it's one of the first travel guides where he was literally like, do not go to this part of the world without red seed beads because you will die. It will, like, you will not make it to India, and then you'll be stuck on a rowboat for days with your first mate, and you don't want to be there, trust me. So yeah, and this is what I mean by if your history doesn't have something utterly ridiculous in it, I start to question its validity, because humans are ridiculous, and the absurd stories are just, it's just how it goes. Yeah, and then I'll stop talking about beads, I promise, because otherwise we'll be here for like 3 weeks. Or I'll be here for 3 weeks. Whether the rest of you are here for 3 weeks, I don't really know.
I apologize if I didn't have much to contribute there, but I was having a giggle fit over what it looks like if you hold a map in both hands and try and mine when you have infinite haste. I was punching leaves with this map, but it looks like I'm trying to use like a pneumatic drill just with a map in both hands. Try it before you leave. It is the funniest thing I've I was just giggle fits over here.
Yes, no, that is
Okay.
It's too good.
Yeah, I agree with Pix. That is something to be experienced firsthand.
My chat is just like creasing up over here, and I'm just trying to keep it together because you're telling these really cool stories, and I'm just like, I don't want to sound like I'm just like suddenly bursting into laughter at you telling these awesome stories, because I'm just like over here cracking up at trying to punch leaves with a map at like Mach 3 speeds.
It wouldn't be a video game if you didn't have something like that involved. So
yeah,
it needs the Woody Woodpecker sound effect.
Yeah.
It's got a with the laughter and everything. I'm providing the laughter at least.
Okay, I'm running out of space in my shulker box. I've finally picked up enough stuff. This shows how much talking I've been doing rather than digging, that I'm still on my first shulker box of debris.
Oh, I'm on like 3 at this point.
Yeah.
I think Ulraf gave me 10 at the beginning of the stream.
Yeah.
So
Certainly, those of you who have been doing a lot of the digging from the top down, that's you're gonna have way more. The other thing is, and this is important to remember, in archaeology, it's important to save all of this stuff because we have to put it back. We have to rebury the site afterwards. But in Minecraft, you don't need to save all of this. I'm one of those players where I can't, like, I physically can't see stuff on the ground and just let it despawn. It hurts my soul. I can't do it. But if you are one of those magical players who can just leave stuff on the ground to despawn, you don't need to save all the materials if you don't want to. But yes, I am an archaeologist. We save everything, so it's a thing. You know, we're collecting samples. Another thing that we do in here we go, more archaeology knowledge for people. Aside from collecting artifacts and documenting structures like this, we also take what are called samples, which is basically just samples of dirt or soil or charcoal, for example. And sometimes it'll be samples of bone, like if we're digging a pit where people threw out the bones from a feast, like if they had a feast on boar or something and they threw the bones out, we might take a sample of those bones rather than take all of the bones necessarily. It depends on how much. Usually a sample happens because there is either not very much of something and we're trying to save as much of it as possible, but it's crumbly like dirt or coal or something like charcoal or something like that. So we're putting it in a tiny sample bag, or it's because we have far too much of the thing and we can't save all of it because there is no space in the entire world that would hold all of it. So we take a representative sample basically, and those are treated separately to finds. They're a separate category of evidence, of archaeological evidence. Specifically called samples. And a lot of those, what we end up doing is something called flotation. So we'll take samples, say like the structure where we were finding the wheat, certainly. If we could do this in Minecraft, which we can't, but if we could, what I would do there as an archaeologist is take a sample of of the dirt in that structure. And then we would do flotation on it to see what kind of seeds come out of that. Because it's possible that the building that has the wheat in it is a storage area for wheat. It's also possible that it's a drying kiln. In Scotland, in the UK, in general, the UK and what is now the UK and Ireland and a lot of Europe, it's a very wet place. Oops, sorry, put my yeah, it's very wet. It's very difficult to dry anything. If you're lucky, you can dry your bed sheets on a day like today when it's just absurdly sunny. But in Scotland is one of those places where they predict rain pretty much every day, because they're probably going to be wrong. But if they're wrong about there being rain, like if they're wrong about predicting rain, then people are happy because it's sunny. But if they predict sun and they're wrong, people are upset. And it's Scotland; the weather changes every 5 minutes. So yeah. So basically, in much of the UK, there are structures called drying kilns or drying mounds or furnaces and that kind of thing. And those are literally just to dry out the grains so that they can be stored safely for future use. And they had to be lit, like a furnace kind of thing, but they wouldn't be so hot that they would actually cook the stuff. And that's a structure. So a sample would help us figure out what's going on there. The other reason we might do a sample is if we've got like something that is clearly funerary remains, but we can't find any skeletal remains. So basically, if we find something that is probably a grave, but we don't find any bones, in Scotland, that can happen quite frequently. We have very acidic soils in a lot of Scotland. Not all of Scotland. Oh, there's water. Not all of Scotland, but a lot of Scotland has very acidic soils. And so people who have been buried for a while, the bones dissolve in the acidic soils. So you can really just see, like, you'll get the outline of the grave maybe, and then just maybe a slight difference in color to the dirt that was in the grave or that fell into the grave. And that's about it. So what we'll do is we'll take a sample to be able to test for certain chemical compounds that will tell us that there was a person who was laid to rest in that grave, or it'll tell us if the grave was empty, or at the very least, if nothing survives from the grave. And that's really important just in general, but it's also important in Scotland because in a lot of time periods in Scotland, people didn't really bury their dead with much of anything. They just bury it, like, so in the early medieval period, they didn't bury their dead with any grave goods. They didn't put anything in the graves. The Picts did not. The Picts are a complicated group of people because they didn't like writing stuff down. They had 2 alphabets and they used them occasionally, but they're like, yeah, we don't, writing not terribly useful. As far as we can tell, they focused more on oral tradition as a society. So that's really cool, but it also means we don't have any historical records from them really. Well, we have like a few, but not many, and most of it is just lists of king names, and that's about it. The Picts were aceramic, which means they didn't have any ceramics. Speaking of ceramics, oh, somebody got a danger shirt.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
I also
cool.
just found the other armor trim as well. So like,
oh, cool. So we've got a full set.
I think somebody had already found one that I didn't see before, but yeah, we do have all 4 of them in there.
Cool.
Like,
I found it while we were talking.
And duplicates of a couple of them.
Very cool. Yeah, I like these. They're good. What was I saying? I don't remember. It's okay.
The Picts is weird.
Oh, the Picts being complicated. Yeah, so they didn't really write anything down. Yeah, Picts being complicated.
No, I am a complicated man.
You're a complicated man.
There's a lot you don't know about me.
Yeah, so the Picts were also aceramic, which means they didn't have ceramics. They didn't really use ceramics. They had some that were like imported Roman amphora, which is a very specific type of ceramic that the Romans really loved keeping wine and oil and also a weird type of fish paste in, because the Romans loved fish paste. Why? People are weird, like I said. Apparently it was very tasty. It was a fermented fish paste. The Romans loved it. And so they would ship things like wine and oil to other people across Europe in these amphora. So we do have some of those in like really important Pictish sites, like where the kings were. But we don't have ceramics, like ceramic vessels, anywhere else for the Picts. We do get ceramic molds For like silver working, they liked a lot of silver, and they turned it into really pretty things, such as like chains and penannular brooches. If any of you have seen Rings of Power and you've seen Elrond with his beautiful little brooch on his shoulder that I have slight beef about, but that's a penannular brooch. Elrond is wearing it in a way where it's functionally useless. It's just for decoration, which is very sad. But penannular brooches, they were worn on the shoulder with the pins sticking out. He's wearing it correctly. The only thing that's potentially wrong about it is that it doesn't seem to be serving any purpose. And penannular brooches were very much there to keep your clothes fastened around you. So they're a functional garment, accessory. But yeah, the Picts had a lot of penannular brooches. As I'm just jumping all over the place. I keep looking around for things to dig, and I think we're kind of getting to a point where there isn't huge amounts left to dig, unless I have failed to explore a certain part of this.
I've been around the perimeter a couple of times, and I think we've got it all sorted out in terms of the edges of the trail ruin. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, and then the Picts, they were aceramic. They didn't bury their dead with anything. They weren't the biggest fan of writing. They didn't use it all that much. Again, like they knew what it was. They knew how to do it. They used it when they wanted to. They just didn't want to most of the time. And yeah, they also spoke a language that was different to a lot of the surrounding peoples, and they were often at war with their surrounding neighbors to varying degrees. Everybody was often at war with each other in various ways or another, but it means that literally everything that was ever written about the Picts by other people is biased to a certain degree, particularly if the Romans wrote about the Picts. The Romans hated the Picts. So yeah, so basically it's and the Picts also built in turf houses, those non-earth fast houses where you can only maybe find the floor and you can't find much else. So when archaeologists say that the past doesn't care about how much they leave behind for you to find, I like using the Picts as a prime example of people who lived their life. They didn't care how much of it got preserved in the long run. I mean, maybe they did, but like it didn't. So a lot of it didn't. So a lot of it did, but there are lots of things that we would normally look to for a society that we can't use in Pictish areas because they just didn't use it. And they're only one example. There are lots and lots of other societies that are similar and just as, really interested. Every society is interesting. Every culture is extremely rich in what it is and what it's done. Every history is worth knowing, and that's a really important thing to know with archaeology specifically, because a lot of the time when you're digging with archaeology or you're studying everyday people, because that's what the majority of people were. And every single story is important, and every single story has meaning. Every single person from the dawn of time, the dawn of people being people have been people for as long as people have existed, which is something I say to my chat a lot, but I'm gonna keep saying it until I'm blue in the face. So people have been just as intelligent as they are today for as long as people have existed. They've also been just as cunning and just as sly and just as mean sometimes. Like any adjective that you can apply to humans today, you can apply to people in the past. It hasn't changed. And the main thing that's changed is the materials that we're able to work with, and the ideas that we are able to build upon because of the work of the people who came before, if that makes sense. So like, talking about ancient glass, modern glass would be nowhere without ancient glass doing what it did. Like ancient glass, to figure out how to make ancient glass, it's not a stable reaction. It will blow up in your face if you do it wrong. So somebody had to figure that out, and that's a difficult thing to figure out when nobody's made glass before. So yeah, anyway, then I know I'm rambling and I'm on a soapbox, but I have a captive audience, so so
I
yeah.
thought it might be fun to go together and maybe go room to room, looking at what we found in each room, and see if we can like piece together what the people here were doing, what are the room's goals or something like that.
Absolutely.
Let's try. Let's meet in the center building over here.
On the subject of the way ancient people made glass and it blowing up in your face, do you remember? Does anybody remember how glass used to be made in the very, very early inf dev stages of Minecraft?
Ooh, I don't know this, so I'm very intrigued.
There was a time at which I think you had to throw sand into lava, and because lava didn't destroy items like sand, it became glass, but it kind of happened like popcorn, where you just kind of throw it on. There's like a really early video of InfDev Minecraft where somebody's throwing sand into some kind of contraption with a lava source right there, and it's just kind of the glass is all going and just like popping up like popcorn. And
that's really cool.
I'm pretty sure you can just Google like Minecraft glass popcorn or something, and it'll show up. It's a really neat look at the way some of this game's mechanics used to function.
That's really cool because what's interesting. Okay, I'll stop talking about ancient glass in just a second, I promise. But look, I've studied it for like 15 years. It's cool. But anyway, I keep telling myself that, and eventually somebody else will believe it. But the what's interesting about that is that the reason that ancient glass was so unstable is because ancient furnaces couldn't get hot enough to melt sand by itself. So you had to add an alkali into it, which made the reaction unstable. So you had to add a stabilizer into it so it didn't blow up in your face. But if you're using something like a lava source, then it can get hot enough theoretically to just melt the sand by itself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I see what it's not quite what it would be in the past, but I see how it very much connects and is like the best way to represent a lot. It's cool. It's cool. I'm saying, yeah, let's leave it at that. It's cool. Okay,
so let's say we're coming from here, and this is a street, like the main
This
street
is where we enter the town. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so over here we found a hanging sign, which actually makes sense, right? Like maybe there was a sign at the entrance. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
The other one is a purple candle.
A purple candle. Okay. There are a number of candles that we found. And actually there's
red, green, and purple.
Red, green, and purple. Yeah. So it seems like there are a lot of candles around this entrance, at least, assuming that this is an entrance. It's at least an access point, so that's cool. What's that one? Is that what is it? A brick.
A brick. Yeah. And so there's obviously like around here is where we found a lot of the sherds. There's the heart ones were all found around here. The friend one, there's 2 heart ones in close proximity.
Candle.
So this is the love shack, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. Red candle, purple candle, friend.
And also
the campfires in the middle of the room kind of makes me think like it's either pottery kiln or it's sauna at this point, right?
Like,
that's so cool.
It's the steam room, right?
Yeah. I love this. I love that it's it's either a kiln or it's Love Shack sauna.
Yes.
Both would make sense. Medieval hot tub, somebody's saying in chat. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the food is
for my North American friends in chat. Sauna, I think.
So this might be the kiln
one of those things, right?
Very true.
What they were cooking was apparently beetroot, according to the beetroot seeds being there.
Yes.
Yeah. I had somebody in chat ask, how would you know that the diorite isn't part of this ruin? Some villages are built using diorite, and I noticed that there's diorite in the walls of the dig site. So how do you know that the diorite and the andesite and the granite aren't part of this? And I would say, having dug, this is now like the 3rd one that I've dug, I have not seen diorite, andesite, granite, or stone in their natural forms used in this structure. So basically, based on what I have found out from previous digs, which Ulraf can correct or deny as he pleases, but in my experience, I haven't seen the diorite or the granite be a part of these, so that's how I know now that they're not. But certainly the first time that I dug one of these, I left all the granite and the diorite until I could see like this. If you see this patch of diorite, something like this that's really big and amorphous, so it doesn't really have a specific shape to it. It's just kind of a blob. That's one way that you can tell it's natural and it's not part of something that people have made, because people, generally speaking, don't just put a whole bunch of a single material into a blob form, unless they're throwing something out. For example, they might, like, it is something that people do sometimes do, but chances are if it's this close to a building, or like this diorite, you can see it would be wrapping around this building, whoever excavated this bit, they can tell that, you know, that's not part of the structure because it's kind of just all over the place rather than being in line with the structure here.
So I think what I like about that question and that answer is that exactly the first time you do this, you can't know, right? The reason you know, I think, is even not because you're a real life archaeologist, it's because you learned Minecraft archaeology. That's like a separate skill, right? And after excavating a few of these, you started being like, okay, this society, they are using these type of materials.
Yes.
And you could have gotten to a different conclusion theoretically, right? You could have found different structures, and you could have found get to a different conclusion. But looking around here, I think we all reach the same conclusion.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Same with the gravel and dirt, right? At the beginning, we could have thought that it's part of the building, but the more we cleared it, it looks like it's more like debris and leftover of things rather than proper part of the building.
Absolutely. And I would say that for people who have dug one of these out on your own or who are planning to, I would recommend, you know, trying to identify what that debris is and digging it out, because what you'll start to see is that the structures have a lot more coherence to them once you take out the gravel and the dirt that isn't a part of the structure itself. And you'll start to see the shapes a lot more clearly. Now, we do have a lot of concrete all over the place marking where we found artifacts, but if you wanted to, you could take those away and see the overall overlying structure, underlying, you could see the structure of the main building and the smaller buildings around it. And that's one of the reasons why in the snapshots I actually realized that the one I had dug looked like a rabbit. If I had left all of the gravel in, I don't think I would have recognized that it looked like a rabbit, because it was literally after I was staring at the thumbnail after having published the video, and I was like, oh gosh, that's a rabbit. So yeah, I recommend, you know, looking at the structures with the gravel and dirt as you go, but also digging that out and seeing what the structure is outside of it. And connected to that, I think it's another really good argument or a point in favor of these sites using a lot of materials. A lot of people have said the materials are not necessarily local, and there are a lot of reasons that people would build with non-local materials. One is a power play. If you want to display how influential you are in a landscape, build in a material that you can't find in that landscape. It's why Stonehenge is impressive, because the stones are not from that part of the world. They're from like several hundred kilometers away. They're from far away. They're same island. They're still from, you know, what is now the UK, but well, they're actually from near Wales basically, but they're not from the site. So part of the interest in Stonehenge is how they managed to move those stones, because they definitely did, and they had techniques for doing it, and it's just really cool. With this site, going back to the question of how do you know what's part of the site and what isn't, terracotta is not a native material in this biome. It's not something that you find naturally. Same with the mud bricks and the various types of worked stone. They don't naturally generate here. So it becomes a really clear message to players early on that something different is happening here. In the same way that when you're and I really like that cobblestone is included in this, because when you're mining and you find cobblestone in vanilla Minecraft in the middle of, you know, one of your strip mines, you know exactly what that is, and it's, you know, you're aware that that is a dungeon, and that's what you're about to find, and you should probably be a bit careful where you dig. And here again, the team is showing like the cobblestone is the unusual stuff, you know, the worked stone and the terracotta. It's a signpost to players that it's different to the stuff that you've been digging in your strip mines and such.
Then again, the terracotta thing is sort of open to interpretation in the same way,
Yeah,
because one of the
absolutely.
other items that we found here has been clay blocks. And you're already looking at the ruins of a civilization that clearly prizes pottery, because we've got several, you know, decorated pots now that we've made ourselves out of what they've left behind.
Yeah.
And there's dye everywhere.
Yes.
And whether that's dyes that they have traded from people. I mean, in this room, sort of off to the left with the kind of mosaic floor, This is the one where there was clay blocks here, there was dye, there was pottery shards, there was gold nuggets as well. So it's whether that's just a valuable item or if it's the beginnings of them using kind of metal currency to trade or something like that.
Like making
probably some
pottery
kind
and
of
trading it here.
Some kind of craft center or production center here. And I think this crafting table was also natural here. So they're definitely crafting stuff. We've got evidence of them crafting stuff here.
They figured out crafting, and I think of this little booth here as like a little kind of counter, like a shop counter that they could be, you're interested in buying some local wood, some birch signs,
exactly.
We're doing a deal on these nice yellow banners.
There you go. We've got a lot of spruce. What else have you got?
I mean, I've just come into some glow ink that this man over there is trading me.
You could even think that maybe this part in the center used to be a place where you put fire or something to process the clay.
Yes,
my chat is really mad that one of the glazed terracotta blocks is kind of rotated, so it doesn't match the pattern of some of the others.
Yep. I haven't looked at my chat for that, but I noticed it myself, and it is. Yep. But there could be a reason that that's the case, which is interesting, and it could be that there's a legit, this is what we intended it to be, or it could be that somebody made a mistake, and that is something that we see in archaeology a lot. That when you get intricate designs like this, so if this wasn't like, this is glaze, so if somebody were painting this design on or carving this design into the floor rather than into the blocks themselves, or if somebody just mislaid the tile, that happens a lot. People mess up a lot because when you're doing something at this scale, it can be difficult to keep track of where the pattern goes and to make sure that it matches the entire thing. Like this one here is also a little bit different to these three. So it is always, I always really like when we find those little mistakes that people made in the past, because it brings humanity so much closer from the past. Like I really live for the moments where the past just kind of smacks you across the face and says, hey, I'm here, welcome, hello. Like one question that archaeologists get asked a lot is, what's the coolest thing you've ever found? And a lot of us have answers that are not necessarily the answers that people are expecting. For me, the coolest thing that I didn't find it, but I took it out of the ground. It was a hearthstone from an Iron Age house here in Scotland. And so this house was about 2,000 years old, and there was a hearthstone. And we needed to take it out to see if there was anything underneath it, to see if there was archaeology from before the Iron Age in this site. And as I lifted it out, the stone itself had been worn. There were divots in the stone that had been worn from hands and knees that had kneeled on that stone 2,000 years ago. And then the stone was buried for 2,000 years, and I was the next person to touch it. And that's one of those things where, like, the past is just like, hey, hi, how you doing? I exist. Congratulations, welcome, welcome to my world. And I love that. Or like moments where we find pottery that has fingerprints in it. And I love doing that with students, handing them a piece of pottery, because they'll look at it and they'll be like, cool, this is a piece of pottery. And then you show them where to put their hands. You're like, yeah, put your hand like this. What do you think you're doing right now? And they're like, well, I'm holding it. And like, yes, but why does it fit so nicely? And like, oh my gosh, they're fingerprints. And like, yeah, so this is, 3,000-year-old pottery. So, that's 3,000-year-old fingerprints that you've put your fingers into right now. Welcome, hello.
Making that connection to the past. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like when we find these little elements of humanity where, like, I like when you can look at something in the past and be like, oh, that's so human. and this thing is so human.
That feeling of connection is actually something that came up over and over and over in pretty much every archaeologist I talked to. Like you were talking before about also the place that was ruined for a shop and how archaeology, I feel like a lot about archaeology, like there's a lot of connected fields you could have gone to, and the people that I talked to that really chose to go into archaeology are people that felt very strong connection to the field that they're sort of there to study, and more often than not even protect. Like, I've seen a few archaeologists that I interviewed that actually, for example, went into politics because they cared so much about protecting the places that they were investigating, right? So they're trying to move laws to do that. And it's just, Yeah, I had like going back to the pillars I was talking about before when I was just starting to design the vision for what the system will be. One of the pillars was very clearly protect, don't break, which
Yeah.
is so much of Minecraft is taking things apart and like you go into a structure and you burn it down pretty much, right? Which is fine, right? A lot of it is okay. We're talking about the speed of the tools as well again.
Yeah.
But this is so much about taking your time, trying to protect what you're seeing around you, keep it sort of intact and learn from it. And
Yeah.
that felt so strong with every archaeologist that I talked to that it felt
Yeah.
like it's a core it's a what's the TikTok right now? It's a core memory. It's I don't know what whatever the memes now is, right? Like I have to include it because it's so important for this.
Yeah. Another thing that archaeologists say all the time that I've started hearing other people say, and I think Pix and Joel, you guys said it on the podcast this week, I think. There was archaeologists will constantly say that archaeology is inherently destructive. You are destroying the archaeology when you dig it. And archaeologists are keenly aware of that, and that there's no way that we can, we've dug this site, we can't dig it again. The gravel is all gone. So we've marked where things are to the best of our ability, but nobody can ever dig this site again unless they're going to dig further down. And sometimes we do that in archaeology. I've been on digs where we've redug a trench and then dug a little bit further or in slightly different directions. But yeah, archaeologists are very aware of how destructive our field is. And so part of it is preserving what we can, really, because we know that everything has the potential to give us so much information about who people were in the past. And there are certain societies that we have a lot of information about, but then there are plenty of societies that we really don't have that much information about, because archaeology is not a super old field, and there are, it came out of some problematic practices and such. And so, since really kind of in the last 30-ish years, we've started seeing a real shift in archaeology towards particularly towards archaeology of communities that have been marginalized historically, that is really, really important and hasn't been done before. And so we're starting to see efforts like the Slave Wrecks Project, for example, which is an underwater archaeology, a maritime archaeology project where Black Americans, Black Europeans, and also Africans are doing underwater archaeology. They're training new archaeologists from that community to do underwater archaeology to find the wrecks of slave ships in the Atlantic Ocean, and to recover that past in a way that is meaningful for those communities. So, and that's one example of a marginalized community and a project that is really wonderful that's come out of it. There's like so many things, and if you're on my, I know I keep referring to things on my stream, but if you're on my stream, if you scroll down, there is sorry, I was moving my mouse around, but if you scroll down in the about section, there's actually a thing about supporting heritage of marginalized groups and some links that you can check out. I highly recommend checking them out because they're really, really important projects and really important groups. But anyway, yes, there are historically ignored groups in a lot of our Western thinking, let's go with, and archaeology, because we get at the everyday person. It's a really important way that people can take agency back over their own heritage in a systematic way that allows them to really, figure out what it is they want to do with that heritage and how they want to honor it, basically.
That's really cool.
So I just got an idea, and the two rooms we gave a purpose to, I put a banner in them, named it, and put it on the map.
Oh, and put it on the map. Cool.
So now we can name all the rooms.
Yes.
Can I duplicate this map for you so you all see the same?
Oh, cool.
Or I guess we can just like right-click on it with our own maps. It'll do the.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So craft and trade station on this one. Yeah. No, that rules.
So the center here, the center pillar, I am sure I know what it is.
the love kiln. Oh my god.
Yes. That's
yes.
So this pillar here, that's like a tower. It has the disc in it, and it has a hoe and wheat. So Xylefian in the chat said it's either a wheat like storage tower, or it's a radio tower. I think both are quite likely. What do you think?
There's also
Ancient radio tower for sure.
A bunch of the dyes kind of came from there as well.
Ancient
Like there's
radio
a
tower.
cluster of dyes all right together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. What else was in this structure? How do I get up to this structure?
Yeah, there's no way. There is like an unfinished ladder there, which probably used
I
to
do
be
have
finished.
scaffolding. I forget about scaffolding in Minecraft because I'm so bad at using it. I fall through it all the time.
Mhm.
So see, like that, I'm really not good.
I think
No, but
I'm
look here.
a prime display.
I think I might be one of the only people I know who actually digs scaffolding. Like I use this stuff all the time. I find it so useful.
I feel like you must have had like an afternoon where you're like, I'm gonna learn how scaffolding works, and then you learned it, and now you're like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, this is too confusing, and I just use dirt instead, or moss, or something.
Yeah. I did my first like proper house build and survival guide today that's going to come out soon, and I didn't use scaffolding for it, and I was like, this feels weird, like just pillaring up with dirt all the time. I'm like, I'm just constantly taking down dirt towers around my house.
What is this, 2010?
I know, right? Like, get with the program. Yeah.
Okay, hang on. So we've got.
Oh, but I like the fact that there's a ladder here, so I think that's probably the way they used to get up here.
Die. Okay,
right?
so we've got 3 dyes, and then we've got the disc.
No, there is also wheat and a hoe up there.
There's also wheat and a hoe
but
up at the top.
It could be separate things because it could be like different rooms, right?
Is storage?
Yes, and also, and this is something that happens in archaeology. It could be from different periods, which is not something that we can check for in Minecraft really, but it's something that happens in archaeology a lot, where we'll see a group come into a site that's like very clearly still standing from the Bronze Age, and it's the early medieval period, and they're like, oh, this is cool, so they'll dig a hole in it and put stuff in the hole and be like, yeah, sweet deal, and then they'll move on, and the stuff in the hole is from the early medieval period, but it's inside the structure of the Bronze Age building. So it could be that the stuff at the top is from a different period as well. I like the idea of a radio tower, or which kind of ties in the wheat as well. I like the idea of this being like a DJ spot for a festival.
Oh, interesting.
Just because there's 3 different dyes right in with the music disc, and unless they had to dye their unless the dye had something important to do with the music disc, or it's a music production company.
Maybe like celebrate, festival, something like celebration tower. I don't know.
Look, they have the Love Shack on one side, and what was on the other side? I forget.
Like the trading post kind of
thing. The trading post. Yeah. See,
yeah.
This sounds like this feels like it could be like fairgrounds have things like that.
Trading post, ticket booth.
Yeah, exactly.
You know. Exactly. Ancient rave site,
This is the gift shop. This is the gift shop.
The gift shop.
This is the festival ground.
Yeah.
Anybody find any leather armor? Could be the t-shirt shop.
Yeah,
maybe. Merch.
I mean, there's candles everywhere as well. So
there are candles everywhere.
You can imagine those being used in some kind of festivals they have in like India and parts of the world like that, where they have Diwali, which is like all about lights and candles, and Holi with the colored powder and everything. Like that's you can see this being like a kind of festival ground in that sense. Yeah.
Somebody's calling it the Burning Zombie Festival.
Yeah, instead of Burning Man.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
This one has a thing for banners. And music, and it has the danger shard.
The danger shard, which is interesting.
Yeah, why would it try to say danger?
Dead bush. Here? There is coal here, which is potentially coal is less helpful than charcoal is in archaeology. Helpfully, in much of the world, people didn't necessarily use coal for heat until significantly after they started using charcoal for it, because coal is only available on the surface in certain parts of the world. So like in what is now China, they started using coal for heat really early because it was there. And we do have like the Romans were using coal they were finding it in Britain. A lot of Bronze Age, in the Bronze Age in what is now Britain and Ireland, there were coal fields where people were picking up coal. But generally speaking, a lot of the time they're using charcoal, and charcoal is really helpful for radiocarbon dating. And if you know anything about the science of archaeology, you probably know about radiocarbon dating, which is how we find out how old something is. Basically, living things, for as long as you are alive and you are breathing air, you are breathing in carbon. And so there's a ratio of carbon isotopes in your body that stays basically constant. But then when a living organism dies, some of that one type of that one isotope, one part of that type of that carbon, really, this is really difficult to explain in non-scientific terms. One type of that carbon will convert into a different type of carbon. And so the ratio between the different types of carbon is how we can determine how old something is, because that only starts to happen after a living organism dies. And that is true of like pretty much every living organism, basically. So charcoal has that in it, more or less, and because it's been burned, like there's a lot to it. I'm not going to explain all of it because we'd be here for a long time, and it's also not my specialty, so I don't want to accidentally say something wrong. But basically, that's how we can do, like, if you've ever seen something where people say, oh, this dates to between 150 to 450 AD. That's where those ranges are coming from, is from radiocarbon dates. But actually, the majority of archaeological dating is not necessarily radiocarbon dates, because you kind of need to find the charcoal, right? You have to be lucky enough to find it near the stuff that you're trying to date. So a lot of it ends up being relative dating. So like if this coal block, if this were charcoal instead, and then the thing next to it, this purple candle, is in the same context, that same type of soil that we're in, they're what we call associated. So the charcoal is associated with the purple candle, which means that they're from basically the same time period. So if we get the date for the charcoal for the radiocarbon date, then we know the radiocarbon date of the candle, right? So that's how we do that. And then we go relative to this context here, how do all the other things match? Are they earlier? Are they later? Where do they go? And so basically, from the different bits of charcoal that we get across a site, oops, as I fall, that's how we can start to build up the sort of sequence of events at the site, and when things are, what period things are from, if that makes sense.
Ginger in my chat is saying, you know where else people did some dating? In the love kiln.
Yeah, Ginger.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I know what this is.
I will, sorry to interrupt, Ulraf, but just to, mostly for Ginger, but also anybody else who wants it, there is a video game called C14 Dating. It's a dating sim of archaeologists. I just want to put that in your minds. It's a thing that exists. You can Google it. And yeah, there you go. You're welcome. Anyway, sorry, Ulraf, you think you know what this is?
Yes, I definitely know what this is. So
okay.
This is, there's a danger shard. So someone here is dangerous. There is a relic disc, which is, I'm seeing like a radio. We established that. And there is this thing, which is like printing colorful thing, like, and I'm gonna see it as a ticket thing. So this is the guard booth for the festival. You get here, you get your ticket.
Like that's amazing. Yes.
If you don't have a ticket, you're in danger. He's gonna beat your ass. And,
absolutely.
What else was there? Oh, there's the radio, because he's bored in his guard post all the time.
He needs something to entertain him.
Yes.
Yeah, spruce woodstock. Somebody in my chat has decided this is spruce woodstock.
Very good. Very good.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. How much glass did we find? I love how, as I said, that I almost never find glass archaeologically. I also didn't find any glass in this site. So my luck with finding glass is about the same.
We have 2 yellow, 1 purple, and 2 pink in here. We have another yellow, another red.
There's a red.
We have another red, another purple.
Cool.
Oh no, it's magenta. Okay, cool.
This is a really weird structure over here, because it doesn't have a
which one? This one?
Inside. It's like a pile, right?
Yeah. Ooh, that's interesting. Here, I'm gonna. This is part of the destructive stuff that archaeologists do.
You want to see the center?
I want to see the center. Yes. So I'll replace this. Okay, so that's the floor. So there is something here in the center. Hang on. Do this, which is this. But you're right, there isn't really like the red, well, the regular terracotta layer is effectively the floor. So there, yeah, but there are a lot of finds.
Yeah,
Is
there's
there
a lot of... that's what I was thinking, like maybe it's almost like a pile of stuff. Right? Like you keep something there.
I wonder if, so we've got this structure, right? So there's like a handle almost. I mean, I call it a handle. There's a bit coming up from over this direction, and then it goes off that way towards the main building. But we don't have any evidence of something similar happening on this side.
True.
So I wonder if the opening, oh, as I jump into a pit, it's fine. I wonder if the opening, the pattern is different too.
Yeah.
I wonder if it could have been caved in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe
that's what I'm wondering.
If it had stuff in it, but then the roof has collapsed and maybe we can't discern the roof from the floor.
Yeah. If the bits of the white terracotta were actually up above and then it collapsed and then these things came and settled on top.
In all of the other structures, the white terracotta is higher. It's not usually at the bottom. It's usually at least mid or high, right?
That's such a cool observation. Yeah. Oh my god.
See, you're thinking like an archaeologist. It's good.
I love that.
Yeah, especially because the places like here, we do have white terracotta that's on the ground, but it's very clearly that the white terracotta is the ceiling. And so the bits that are on the ground probably came from the ceiling. Like the bits where it is on the ground is actually almost never overlapping with the ceiling.
Right.
So it is bits of ceiling that have fallen down. That's cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there we go. This is another argument for excavating one of these with friends. Like if you have a server and you want to get people together to excavate one of these, I highly recommend it. A, because it's going to take you a lot less time, and B, because you're going to be a lot more entertained while digging with people. But also because, and this is why archaeologists, I mean, there are a number of reasons we do this as a team, but it is very much a team effort. And part of that is because people have different observations and different ideas. So like Joel spent a lot of time digging out a lot of these structures, whereas, you know, others of us were spending a lot more time digging up above or getting little fiddly bits. Joel was figuring out the footprint of this site, so he's a bit more primed to be seeing those patterns of where the roofs are that I might not have seen because that wasn't something I was focused on while we were digging. So it's really important to do this with other people who are going to be able to bring other insights into what's going on.
Yeah. By the way, I just wanted to say I got very aware of how it sounds when I am excited about this structure. It's like almost like I'm saying, just to be clear, I did not make the structures specifically. We had someone who made them. Obviously, everything is a team effort and we work together and feedback and so forth. But I did not make the structure specifically. So I'm excited about other people's work, not tooting my own horn. Just
and I believe that at least one of the people who worked on the trail ruins also worked on the ancient cities, which is a really cool connection. I believe they commented on one of my videos saying that, which was really cool. So yeah, there are continuities, but well, they have worked on multiple of these structures. I'm not saying there are continuities in Minecraft lore between the structures, but there's a lot of thought. There's a lot of thought going into these structures, and it's really, really cool to see.
The same person was part of both of these and the Piglin Bastions as well.
Yes, that was the other one. I knew there was a third one, and I couldn't remember which one it was, but yes. So yeah, very, very cool. Very, very well done on the structure front. Any other ideas for other buildings? What about this one over here? What have we got?
What do we
Burn sherd. Wooden hoe, wayfinder armor trim, white dye.
What do you guys think about the names of the trims? I'm really curious.
This would require remembering the names of the trims.
They are wayfinder, razor, shaper, and host. And so, like wayfinder,
we have all 4 of them. here.
Yeah, Wayfinder. I mean, there's a cartography table in this place, and so you think about like Wayfinders, people who plot routes across like maps for journeys and so forth, right? So
Cool.
potentially got some stuff like making connections there. Your
Looking
Razor could
cool.
be something like a builder, right? Like it's RAISE, not RAZE. So
Okay, okay.
it's like, you know, raising a structure, raising a barn, you know, raising a child, you know, all kind of
Mhm.
positive, constructive kind of things, as opposed to RAZE, which is burning stuff.
Yeah. Joel, there's all 4 of them here if you want to see them, by the way.
Oh yeah, I
Cool.
should actually look at what they are. shouldn't I?
Shaper, Wayfinder, Host, and Razor.
I mean, crafting has shapes as well, right? So Shaper could be much more to do with the crafting of things than the building.
Mm.
And then Host, I mean, Host obviously has some implications for multiplayer Minecraft in general. You're hosting a server, right? But
That's true.
it could even be like, you know, that's the armor trim given to the head of this community, you know, right? Like the whatever kind of like, you know, important man in the village, important person in the village is going to have like a host, like they are the person that you defer to when you visit the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think and similar, I'm kind of lumping the armor trims and the pottery sherds together here. What's interesting to me is that we have the names of them, and a question becomes: are these the names that we ourselves are giving to these things in our current Minecraft time, or are these the names that these societies gave to these objects at the time that they were using them? Because those are two very different things, and it would affect what they mean basically. I really like. I haven't spent much time, as I said, looking at the armor trims, just because I was focusing a lot on the archaeology, and wanted to leave some of the other 1.20 stuff for exploration. But I really love the names of the pottery sherds, which I've become very familiar with over the last few weeks, and in part because they're fantastic names in general, but also because they don't actually specifically use the Minecraft name of the thing that it depicts necessarily.
Mhm.
Heart does, but like burn is a fire, but it's not the fire pottery sherd. Or like danger for the creeper, it's not the creeper pottery sherd. And I really love that the names for the pottery sherds evoke meaning in addition to the depiction itself, in a way that's really interesting for lore purposes. And a lot of people have talked about this, particularly in relation to the mourner sherd, because that depicts the warden, and so there's a lot of question of, okay, is that how this society viewed the warden, or is this what the warden was originally? What does this mean for lore around the warden? Personally, I really just love where the mourner sherd is found, because it's found in a place that you would not expect to be associated with ancient cities, which is really cool. I won't spoil it for people because I feel like we're doing a lot of that. I'll leave some of it for you to find. But yeah, I think I really like the names, at least of the pottery sherds, for what they kind of, for the questions that they generate when you find out the name, if that makes sense.
That's definitely the goal, both for the trims and in general for naming, right? This is not
Yeah.
about giving you very specific things. It's more about opening questions. And I loved what Pix said as well about like thinking about the different positions that these are trying to describe and what they're saying as part of the context of these structures as well.
And
Yeah.
folks in my chat also pointed out that host could be a religious thing, and
Yes.
a host can even be like a group of people moving together, like an army.
Yes.
Like,
True.
you know, there's a host of people
Mm-hmm.
traveling together, like a caravan. You know, there's
Yes.
a whole variety of different contexts in which we find that word used. So
It's also, yeah, sorry.
no, that's it. That's more or less what I was gonna
Yeah.
say.
When you were talking about it, my first thought was, so in Scottish archaeology and Scottish history, there are certain traditions that spend a large, like there's a large emphasis on hospitality as like a major tenet of the culture, and so that was where my brain went first when looking at the host armor trim. I was like, oh, okay, I wonder if this is a society that values hospitality and being a good host to people. I keep walking into blocks. I know what I'm doing in this game. It's I know archaeology better than Minecraft probably, but But yeah, it's there. I really similar to what your chat is saying, Pix, as well, and what Ulraf is saying and what you're saying, Pix. Well, everybody's saying is I really love that there is so much open interpretation to what these things mean and what they are, because it allows everybody to use them to tell their own stories. Part of this is part of the what's beautiful about the archaeology mechanics and everything that is in archaeology is not just the fact that we can find a site like these trail ruins and excavate them, but we can create our own sites in Minecraft in our own servers with our friends. And one of the things that I've found on a server that I started with archaeologists who were interested in understanding how Minecraft works. This was again before we knew that archaeology was coming to Minecraft. The archaeologists, well, and the non-archaeologists on that server have made archaeological sites in Minecraft that they're then like, hey, rest of the server, this exists. If you happen to find it, good luck. And everybody has a great time trying to figure out what was going on. And what's beautiful about these is that we have so many more avenues for telling stories in a kind of ambiguous way, so that people can use them in the way that they're hoping to fit their own specific lore for their specific server, which is really, really cool.
One of the things that I've thought about and was pointed out in my chat today was big projects, like the city of West Hill, and how someone like you as an archaeologist might look at it walking through it versus thinking about what it might be like if Minecraft had some sort of age mechanic where this it would look different over time. So come back to it after 2 or 3 years on the server, and less and less and less of it would be standing, and you'd just be left with like the foundations, and in a way probably looks like what I had when I first started planning it, with like cobblestone squares for building goes here, road goes here, that kind of a thing. And they were asking me if I'd ever thought about it from an archaeological standpoint, and I haven't in that way, in that I haven't wanted it to look like a ruin at all, but I have thought about different sections of the town in terms of them being older or younger, like what was built first, what was built second, what was built out of necessity in terms of the fishing village compared to the higher mansions and the fancier parts of things. So I'm curious, looking at these trail ruins as they exist in Minecraft in 1.20, do you see anything in the trail ruins that you've seen that would indicate to you something that might be older versus something that might be younger, outside of the obvious with like something up at the surface being potentially younger? Is there anything that's like, I guess from a material standpoint, I guess, would that be a good way to look at it? Because I mean, I see that the things that I see mud bricks and terracotta, and then I see bricks, like clay bricks and terracotta, and there seems to be, there's no particular order to them. Like we switch back and forth. It's not like the farther that you go east, the newer the buildings get, because we've got a mud brick building over here that's different than the clay brick building that we've got here that Ulraf is standing in. So I'm wondering if you've seen anything apart from just layers that indicate to you ages of things.
Yes. So, well, yes and no, just because they're as you're well aware, having built West Hill, there are limitations to how you can really show that in Minecraft a lot of the time. But yeah, as you're saying, absolutely, there's a difference in material between the mud brick versus the fired bricks, or the more uniform. This is very uniform materials here, and the mud bricks, the specific mud bricks here, they are uniform as well, same as the stone bricks. But then you have packed mud walls and such, and things that are a little bit less, you've got the cobblestones instead of these very specific carved stones. In terms of which comes first, that's a really interesting question, and archaeologists wrestle with this all the time, because that is a big part of that relative dating technique that I was talking about earlier. Because you've got the radiocarbon dating, it would be great if we found charcoal in both of these structures, or in all of these structures, but we can't necessarily do that. And the question then becomes, which is older? Is this building older than that building, or vice versa? I think there's an inclination to say that this building is potentially older, and personally, just looking at the materials in terms of even just the decay. Like we see the cobblestone, so this is kind of crumbling, this bit is crumbling. I
You have
might
silk
be
touch
more.
pics. I got confused as well.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out how
That's
to break
why
this
I
thing.
made I made the
Yeah,
own
that's
one
true.
just to break it if you
That's
want
true.
over here.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, an upgrade from my efficiency 5 netherite pickaxe.
Yeah, so in terms of which one is older, I don't know that I would be able to comfortably say. If I had to guess, I would guess that this is older. But that might just be my own biases kicking in, is the other thing.
Right.
That's another thing that we have to be aware of as archaeologists, is how biased our own perceptions of things are, because everybody's biased, like full stop. There's no escaping it. The question is just how much can you minimize it. The goal is to minimize it as much as possible. So on the one hand, my inclination is to say that the stuff with the mud bricks, because they're larger bricks and they're not as like uniform as these smaller ones, that these would be later than this. However, I would also be inclined as an archaeologist to look at these structures and say, well, number one, there's bricks over here. So this, okay, hang on. I just had another thought. So these bricks, we're talking about, this is, yeah, archaeology thought. So we're talking about the bricks and the mud bricks, right? And then we've got this. Okay, now, going back to what Joel was saying about thinking about what came first in West Hill, that's a really important thing. And a lot of people, okay, this is such a tangent, but I promise it all connects. Right. So a lot of people have been asking, how do I build my own ruins in Minecraft? And what a lot of content creators say, and what I very much agree with, is build up the site first and then ruin it. But I will add what Joel is saying is, when you build the site, don't just build the site as it looked at its height. Build several stages of that project so that those stages can still be visible in the ruins when you ruin the site. And I have a whole video about this, not to continually plug videos and things, but I do have a video about this if you're curious. So, you know, I'm not going to continually answer the how to build ruins thing. But one of the things that I talk about, and one of the things I'll talk about here, is expansions to buildings. So in archaeology, when we have really straight lines like this, I mean, it's Minecraft, so there are a lot of straight lines, but it's a really straight line, and it goes to a very different building material, and it comes right up to the original building. That is an indication that something is an extension. Either this is an extension, although that's unlikely. It's probably this that's an extension because it's the smaller thing. And that's not like a fail-safe way of determining. There's a lot of archaeological thought that's happening that I don't know if I can articulate. But the Love Shack, what I'm saying is the Love Shack is an expansion on the DJ house, and because of that, I feel like the structure over here with the bricks, at the very least, their floor, the foundation with the bricks, is later probably than this foundation of this main building.
Makes a lot of sense. And then further down here, you have another building with the mud bricks that's like slightly further away, a bit more distant. And I don't know if like the materials they're using here are pretty consistent with the trading post as well, because it's got the mosaic tile, it's got the white terracotta roof.
Yeah,
and maybe like
it has fire in the center, which we theorize
which
maybe
we found.
Fire.
Yeah. And so it's got the mud brick kind of foundation to it. And then the neighboring building has some of the same characteristics. They've got a bit more terracotta color coming in at the top, but then it's got a different style of construction. Like this one's a lot more open. It's got the kind of almost like tent poles holding up the roof, whereas this feels like a much more contained kind of thing. This almost reminds me of like this might be just the color scheme they use in Pokemon, but it sort of reminds me of like a potion bottle from Pokemon. Like a little bit.
It's the color scheme it would be if Pokemon used Minecraft terracotta.
Yeah, absolutely. But then at the top of this one, this is the one that has the cartography table in it, and is a tall building with a spiral staircase in it. So clearly somebody who wants to get a view out over the surroundings. It's the second tallest building in the village compared to like the only other one that's taller is the DJ tower.
Yeah, height of buildings is also a really interesting thing because a lot of people like building really tall buildings to demonstrate power. It's not always a power move, but
Useful.
it's often a power move. So that's that's a really important connection to make, that this is as tall as the main building. Yeah, and the difference in materials is an interesting thing to note, and I'm now wondering if we could like make a relative chronology of this site from the artifacts, like if there's a difference in artifacts between the brick foundation sites and the mud brick foundation site buildings.
So I actually I think your theory is completely valid, but I actually have a completely different theory, which
Sure,
I
yeah,
think
let's
is
hear it.
interesting. Just
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it makes sense real life archaeology, but I made the connection that the two structures that have brick in them
Uh-huh.
are the ones that have a lot of fire related stuff.
Okay.
Like there's the
Yeah.
burn shards on this one, and the other one had 4 campfires. So it made me think like maybe they're just using a different material because the use of that building is relevant to that material.
Yeah,
Right?
that is a very important point. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely valid. And without any carbon from the campfires, we won't be able to definitively answer that question. But that's, yeah, absolutely a very good point to raise, that different materials are used for different functions in buildings. And so it's entirely possible that these buildings that are using brick because that's a better material to have around lots of heat and lots of flame. Whereas the mud brick, you know, if they can build with the mud brick, they do, because it's a little bit easier to put together. But if they really need the brick, then they use it. Yeah, that's a really cool thought as well. So I'm getting a lot of like trade center / production center from this site, which is not surprising to me as an archaeologist at all. This, like the big building, which exists in, as far as I'm aware, all trail ruins have some version of a big building. They tend to signify important sites, right? The larger building you have, generally speaking, and this is again not like across the board, because you can have really important buildings that are really small, or vice versa, really unimportant buildings that are really big. But generally speaking, if there is a large building that seems to be for communal use, it's not like somebody's house, then generally speaking, that's what we call major public works, which is not, I mean, like you could call it a lot of stuff, that's not the be all and end all official term, but basically what it means is there were enough resources in this settlement to build a building this big that is not somebody's house, right? It's for people, the community, to use. So that's a demonstration that they're doing well for themselves. They've got the resources to do that. And the more of these monumental public works we have in a site, that's one indication that that a site or that a society is amassing resources and power, if that makes sense. So ancient Egypt is a really easy example, because they have monumental public works all over the place, mostly because in ancient Egypt, the Nile would flood. And so everybody who farmed along the Nile would be out of work for a significant portion of the year. So basically, the pharaohs would hire them to build the monumental public works, like the pyramids and the Sphinx and all of that. They were built by workers, and so that's where it comes from. They literally would save grain back and then hire the workers to build the major public works, and then pay them in the grain that they saved from the harvest before the floods came, basically. So yeah, you see it there, but you also see it in Rome, you see it in Greece, you see it in literally every society has major public works somewhere. And not all of them will be like big structures that you can see like this. If you remember with the Picts, they have non-earth fast buildings. so they still have monumental public works, but we don't necessarily see them in the ground until you're digging, and then you find a floor and you're like, oh goodness, okay. you know. So yeah, this, I circling all the way back around, I would say that this site is a power center, or a major center of some kind. They have resources. They're definitely crafting things. They're definitely trading things. So they would be a main hub in this part of the world for their society, most likely.
I looked at the structure here at the end, And I'm getting strong like communal vibe from this. Like it seems like just a meeting place or like maybe where you come to eat together as a group. There's also the host and razor trims here.
Yeah. Interesting. And also a burn shirt.
There's a campfire in the center of the room, some seats around the outside. You know, it's all made out of the same material, but it's just kind of like clearly arranged as furniture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely a communal building. Probably some kind of hangout spot, basically, it looks like. Could well have other stuff that happens here as well, but it feels like this is where we gather at the end of the day or in the afternoon to, chat about something. This is where like a town square where various people just sit and chill for a while at various points of the day.
Chill hangout space. It's also speaking of hangout, it's got a hanging sign that we found here. So potentially something else that would have been signposted for people to recognize what it was, as opposed to like just somebody's private residence or something.
That's very true. That's very true. And hanging signs, it could also be so agreed, could be something that is labeling what this is for people. Could also be a sign that's like no loitering or something.
So I named the structure.
Yeah, I want to know what you named the structure. What did we get it? Hang on, where's my map? My 64 maps. Oh gosh.
I don't know if it's very small.
I can't read it. What is it?
Just take one.
Some kind of hangout spot, and it's in quotes, and then it says a professional Archie person.
Yeah, that's the technical term. I promise. It's there we go.
This is like that one splash screen that's like, you have to see this in 1080p to be able to read it or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like such tiny font by 4K monitor.
It reminds me of like those quotes on books that are like, this is a wonderful piece of literature. Some kind of hangout spot. It's I'm proud of that one. That's good. Yeah, well, this is cool. This is really cool. Are there how are we doing on looking at these structures? I know that I keep rambling about things, so
there's only I think the one here on the left, which I'm not even sure if it's a structure. The one that I'm standing on. It seems more like it's mostly concrete blocks, which means it's mostly just stuff as opposed to structure.
I'm curious. Did whoever was digging this, do you remember if it was mostly dirt in here?
I feel like there was a lot of coarse dirt.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So in this is another, having dug a few of these, in my experience, what are the things that we found? There's some pottery sherds?
Yeah, okay. Brown candle, host armor trim. We've got green candle, heart sherd.
There are elements of these to me that have said like public plant space in the past. And we don't have finds here that corroborate that, so it might not be. But basically, the nature of the structure and the fact that there was coarse dirt in here, for me, is suggesting that this is one of those like plant pot areas.
That's exactly where like our assumption.
Thanks so much, Cardinal. Really appreciate it.
Part of the structure sort of comes back to bite us, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah, community garden. Somebody in my chat is saying, something like that.
Exactly. And yeah, Ulraf, that's a really good point. That's a thing that happens in archaeology as well. That sometimes something that we think isn't that we think is part of the natural that we can get rid of, we realize later is actually a little more important than we necessarily thought it was. The nice thing for everybody who's watching, just to clarify, there is a lot more documentation that happens as you go in real life archaeology. There's a lot of numbering, there's a lot of photographs, there's a lot of drawings. There would be like a million pieces of paper with a bunch of different information for each and every one of these, the context and the structures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're just not doing that in Minecraft because we would be here for days, and we like sleep. So but yes,
we could have taken pictures, but also I think it's really cool to me that you had extra information for us because you already did a few of these. So
Yeah.
basically, the more of these you do, the better Minecraft archaeologist you become, basically,
Yes.
which I
Yes.
really like.
And that's true. That's something to keep in mind for whether you're doing trail ruins or whether you're looking at any of the other site types. You can't really go between, like if I look at an ocean ruin, I can't then take that information and bring it over to the trail ruin, just because they're different structures and probably potentially different cultures, especially because the sherds that are found in both are not the same. They're the same
Right.
general material, but the design of them is different. So you can't go between site types, but if you dig enough trail ruins, you'll start to get a sense of, oh right, okay, these are the different varieties of how these things work. And similar to how speedrunners understand different styles of bastions, if you do archaeology in trail ruins enough, you'll start to look at a structure and say, oh right, okay, in another one I found a whole bunch of plants. It was like really obvious that this was a community garden. There is a wooden hoe here, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
And you can start bringing that knowledge into future sites that you dig, future trail ruins that you dig. Are you trying to get a bird's eye view, Pix?
I'm just looking at it from the air in terms of the size of stuff, because like it's a really interesting thing to measure against the context of its surroundings, like the landscape we have here. Compare it to the size of like an established tiger village, for example. Like the structures in those are a little bit spread out, and the structure of them is more organic, where this feels kind of more formal. It's all arranged along one cobblestone road instead of the kind of dirt path villages. But in terms of size, I feel like the tiger village typically has it beat just on average, because of like it's more sprawling, it's kind of dotted amongst the trees, and kind of has to work with the landscape a little bit. But I like just seeing this in the ground from a distance and looking at the context of it in the surroundings, and also this massive trench we've dug.
I was also thinking, and just as an FYI for people, I was thinking of also trying to make this so a bunch of us, or well, I at least will be publishing a VOD of the stream for people who couldn't make it, or for people who came late, you can catch the VOD. So I'm going to put that on YouTube, but I was also going to take this world and make it a world download so that you guys can explore this ruins on your own and see what we found. So I'll give everybody in chat the seed as well. In fact, I can do that just now. And you guys, if you want to, you can play this same, hang on, let me do this. You can play this same seed if you want, but also once the VODs are there, I'll also do a world download so you guys can explore and see what it is we found. Because I know that there are parts of this site that I haven't wandered around terribly much, at all. Or what you may want to do is take out all of our concrete and see what this looks like without all of the concrete in it, and try to get more at the structure. It's entirely up to you. Just as an FYI.
Something that I might be getting a bit nostalgic, but it just flying above here. If you guys want to go into creative and come over here.
Oh, that's true.
Just looking at this, and then let me change my capture to display screen. Can I do that? It's capturing the wrong screen. 1 second. It's just I opened a picture from the original Minecraft Live, like demonstration that I like together. It's just looking at the original sort of dig site that I had there versus how this is. And sort of it's just really cool to see that where we started and where we are, sort of thing, and how we dug this up pretty much exactly how we wanted sort of the players to have the experience of creating these dig sites, digging them down. There's like a bit of space from each side, and we even have the signs on the locations of like this is where I found this is where this was, and guessing what things are and stuff like that. It's just
when it comes to excavating one of these in my survival guide world, I'm definitely going to do it this way. I think it's a really fun way to uncover everything and like leave markers where everything was, and then maybe I'll go back and remove the markers later because I want to put like a glass roof over the top of things and be able to like walk around and look down on it. But
lock that map and then
yeah,
absolutely.
but I love the idea of having all of this stuff signposted on there and really seeing a visual representation of how much stuff is actually in here besides just the items in a chest. I think like we've almost placed as many blocks as there are blocks in some of these houses.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. There've been a few times where I've looked at the red concrete and my brain's like, oh, so that's structural. I'm like, nope, that's too vibrant of a red to be structural. That's an object. Hang on, wait a minute.
That's us.
Yeah. The other thing, Pix, well, everybody, but I know Pix, you use Lightmatica a lot. One of the things I really want to do is once Lightmatica updates to 1.20, I want to dig a site like this, have the markers there, and then turn that into a Lightmatica blueprint, then get rid of the markers and use Lightmatica as augmented reality to show where the finds were.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
I am a glass specialist, I'm also a 3D modeling specialist. So
So
digital imaging is my jam as well. And I feel like Lightmatica has a lot to offer potential archaeology in Minecraft, and that is one thing that I really want to do. It'd be really cool.
I remember when you and I collaborated on that build of the Petra site, the mausoleum. What was it called? The treasury.
The treasury,
at Petra, and you sent me the link to. Is it Zamani project? Is that what it's called?
Yes. Let me.
It's something along those lines. Yeah, link it if you can find it quickly. But it's a really incredible set of. I mean, photo reference and like 3D imaging reference of the site at Petra, and it's absolutely wild. Like people will know it as the like one of the things it's appeared in is the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I believe it's like the facade that they go into where it's the temple that the Holy Grail is being kept in. But that aside, it's just a phenomenal looking site and so interesting, like the landscape that it's set in beyond that. But I think it's really cool that such detailed study of that area exists and is available publicly, that you can just go and look at 3D scans of this entire building and use that as reference to recreate it to scale in Minecraft if you want to, you know?
Yeah. That was easily one of the nicest times I've had finding information about a site to build in Minecraft.
Yeah.
Because it's just a 3D model there, and it's like, oh right, okay, that's what it's supposed to look like. I don't have to translate anything.
Scale.
With camels for scale. That's the other thing. I feel like I should go back into that world in 1.20 just to get a camel
just
for
spawn
scale.
A camel, yeah.
It's there we go.
It is.
Yes, camel for
He's
scale.
done it for us. Look at this lad. Oh.
You're absolutely right. It is the Zamani project. I've linked to it in my chat, but you can also just Google it. It's ZAM or ZAMANI and then project. They've done Petra, but they've also done quite a few other sites, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's really, really cool. And the 3D model stuff, if for anybody who's interested in archaeological 3D modeling, a site that you can have a sort of noodle around on. Hey, we've got villagers too. Is called Sketchfab. If you've ever heard of Sketchfab, it's a 3D modeling database basically where people will post their 3D models and they're for public viewing. And a lot of heritage organizations, especially here in the UK, have put a lot of their 3D models on there. So like half of the standing stones, the carved stones in Scotland, I mean, I say half, that may be an exaggeration, but I honestly don't think it is. There's a lot of like carved stones that are on there. There are monuments and like archaeological sites. There's a whole lot of stuff on there. It's really, really cool. So definitely check out Sketchfab if you're interested.
Well, thanks so much for doing this. This is really, really, I mean, interesting, but also overwhelming in terms of just the amount of things that you as an archaeologist think about when you're doing this kind of a dig in Minecraft, which I don't want to put words in people's, brains, but like I would take for granted if I was to just do this on my own, had I not done this with you first. Do you know what I mean? Like I would still remove all the extra blocks and get the perimeter down, but like the cataloging and all of that thought and the different layers, pardon the pun, that you bring to thinking about something like this, I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very nice. It's nice to hear. And it's one of those things, something that you learn as an adult, basically. I mean, you probably learn it as a kid as well, but something that kind of hits you in the head as an adult on a regular basis is that there are a lot of people who know an awful lot about an awful lot of things that you know nothing about. And I'm saying this because, like, Joel, you're talking about all of this insight into archaeology that you've just got, but literally like 2 or 3 weeks ago, or maybe slightly more, on the spawn chunks, you were talking all about sightlines and an artistic approach to building in Minecraft in given your experience as an artist. And like, those were not things that I knew or thought of. And it's just really interesting to see people bring their own expertise into Minecraft and to explain it in a way that the rest of us can start to actually understand what all of these things are, and appreciate the expertise of all of the people around us. It's really, really cool.
So tune in for Joel's next stream uncovering one of these where he does the color theory of
Yeah.
ruins and
Yeah.
like what it
Uh,
says about the sightlines and the shapes. And
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, it'll look and sound an awful lot like, hey, look, I found dye here and dye here, and hey, look, more dye there and more dye there. Yeah.
Yeah. I also hope, I know one of the common criticisms of archaeology when it was first released in a snapshot was that there is a lot of stuff that isn't very useful in the loot table. And I hope that in watching us dig this, you've started to be able, those of you who may have felt that way, have hopefully started to see that it's not about an object being useful. It's about what that object can tell you about the civilization or the society that used it and that created it. So it doesn't really matter if you feel like the blue dye you found is useful to you specifically. The fact that you found blue dye in, like, we wouldn't have come up with the Love Shack idea if we didn't care about the fact that we had these different sherds in these different places and these different things. We wouldn't have come up with that idea. Or like the DJ hut, which is not really a hut, it's like a DJ radio tower thing. Like, we wouldn't have come up with that idea if we weren't paying attention to every single part of all of the loot that we found here. So it doesn't mean that you need to feel like everything you find in these sites is useful, or like, if you don't feel it's use, if you're just coming here for some pottery sherds, don't feel guilty about it. That's okay. It's Minecraft. It's a sandbox game. You can play it however you want. But hopefully you can start to see that there is a usefulness, quote unquote, to these objects in these loot tables that is more than what they're going to do for you after you leave the site, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's an overlying value attached to items and blocks in Minecraft, usually based on progression. But then if you think about it in terms of story value, then I mean, well, one, that's subjective, but then two, it means that what you've got, here is just a treasure trove of, like, however you want to apply it, in terms of what you found and how you want to interpret it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I just got shoved by a villager for several blocks, and then they turned away and walked away from me after staring at me for a few seconds.
I was also distracted by footprints. I've got footsteps of a sheep that were happening behind me, and I just like, it's creeper. I was like, oh no, wait, we're in peaceful mode. It's not a creeper, but your brain just kind of like tweaks on that. Like, goes into it, sound that's not me walking. What's going on?
Yeah. That's another thing. Like, people, if you're wanting to excavate one of these sites, absolutely don't feel self-conscious about just going into peaceful and doing it in peaceful mode. If you don't want to deal with creepers while you're trying to do all this, then don't deal with creepers. There's no rule saying that you have to have creepers available at all times. I'm a chronically ill, disabled person. There are days where I cannot process enough information to get away from a creeper fast enough before it ruins my day. So there are days where I just turn off the creepers, or I turn off mobs, or I turn off mob griefing or something. It's perfect. I feel like we end up in I mean, I've been on a soapbox for a while now, but there are often times where we think about, you know, where people talk about Minecraft and the right way to play it or the wrong way to play it, and there is no wrong way to play Minecraft, in the same way that there's no wrong way to dig one of these trail ruins. Like if you don't want to go through and document everything, that's fine. It's your world. I'm not your mother. You know, I'm not your personal archaeologist or whatever. I mean, yeah, it's okay if that's what you want to do. Or if you're like, oh, hey, I could really use some relatively easy to get terracotta, and I'm in the middle of nowhere where it's difficult to get this much terracotta. You know what? I'm just going to dig the whole thing and use the materials. We see that in archaeology all the time. That is a valid response. I mean, it's not a good response in the modern world. Don't do this in real life. It is illegal in almost every country. But it's something that, like, it's a Minecraft world. You can absolutely do that. So don't, if you're looking at this and thinking, oh gosh, how am I going to deal with, you know, the weather differences in weather and differences with, you know, mobs or like phantoms, how am I going to remember to sleep in the hole every night? Like, you don't have to if you don't want to. You can just turn those off. It's okay.
Yeah, Zalefian says that sometimes he doesn't want me in his server, so he just bans me off. Very nice. No, but I think I 100% agree with like everything you're saying about the usefulness and about the story of things, and I've been thinking a lot about what our role as designers of this game is. Recently, you've seen King's tweet about it and stuff. We've been talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
And I think for me, a lot of what I see our role is to give players like the thing that is most common about Minecraft. Many people do many different things, but there is one activity that is sort of the most common activity that most of us do, and that is building. And I think that sort of giving motivations and inspiration and sort of nudges to building is, I see it as one of my main roles here as designer. And I think that's exactly this. Like, I see my chat is full of people saying, oh, I could like rebuild these things, or I could build a base around this, or how cool would it be to take this and see, like, expand it and see how a full city would look with this style, right?
Yeah.
So these are just, I see that as overwhelming success as a designer of me inspiring you to build cool things and have interesting experiences in the game, basically. And that's also like that, and also of course exploring it is gameplay. It's trying to tell your own stories around it is gameplay. All of these things are things you're enjoying to do in the game, basically.
Yeah, absolutely agree with all of those points. Yeah.
All right, well, that seems like the perfect place to wrap this up, because it is getting a little late here.
It is getting
this has been spectacularly fun, and I hope everyone who's watching has enjoyed it. I know my VOD's going to stay up on Twitch. I'll probably post it to YouTube as well. I'm at the very least, people have demanded that I make a short out of me laughing at punching a tree with a map. So
I mean, I feel like that needs to be a short. That's just too funny.
This is definitely going to make its way to YouTube in some shape or form, or at the very least, I'll like refer back to it when I'm eventually digging one of these out solo in my single player world and having a lot of fun. But thank you all so much for taking the time to join us. It's been phenomenally fun, and like let's
Thanks
go out and find some more ruins.
Awesome.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to this plan of mine. Thank you for agreeing to me putting you down for some hard labor.
Of course, always. And if anybody in the chat needs to find links to the various other people, they're all in my Twitch title. So click on all of those. Drop everybody a follow.
Same.
And listen to the Spawn Chunks podcast when we talk about more stuff like this, I guess, on Monday. And
definitely go watch that episode of the Spawn Chunk that I was in. It's such a good episode. And,
go and be nice to Ulraf on Twitter.
Yeah.
Nice words only, please.
Yeah.
So
all right,
thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's been great.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Have a good one, and
cheers.
We'll chat soon.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
absolutely.
All right, folks, that is where I am going to sign out. Obviously, as Pixlriffs pointed out, you can follow Pixlriffs, ArchaeoPlays, and Ulraf all here on Twitch, also on Twitter. I think it's all the same on Twitter, as a matter of fact. So, and those links would be in their Twitch profiles anyway, so it'd be pretty easy to figure out, I think. Let's look at the nice panorama that's in the new 1.20. I am going to be streaming again tomorrow. That's Wednesday. We'll be doing Satisfactory as per the normal schedule, and then returning back to Minecraft in West Hill on Thursday, followed by Ecto 1 Lego building on Friday. So the rest of the week is pretty straightforward. It will be at the regular time. Today was a special time to accommodate the folks overseas, where everybody was a lot later than I was, and had to finish like work days and things like that. So, but it'll be 1 o'clock the rest of the week. That's UTC minus 3 hours because I'm in Atlantic time, or an hour ahead of New York, just to confuse you and add more numbers in there. You can check me out at Twitter on at Joel Duggan, Instagram's Joel Duggan. I'm pretty easy to find. Spawn Chunks and the Citadel Cafe at respective websites, as well as on iTunes and really wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. That episode of the Spawn Chunks with Dr. Heather Christie, that's ArchaeoPlays, that was episode 211. You can find that at thespawnchunks.com. But if you just do a search in the search box for either ArchaeoPlays or Heather Christie or 211, you'll find it fast enough in the archive. Pretty easy. Cosmic also has a link for you in chat, which I very much appreciate. Thank you, Cosmic. And thank you, Cosmic, for fielding the questions. I tried to get to as many of them as I could. I skipped over some that I thought that Heather had answered already. So if you didn't get your question read, then I feel like it was probably covered, at least kind of like in a general sense. And of course, you can check out other ways to support the stream. I really appreciate all the people that were supporting with subs today. I tried to thank everyone as best I could. I hope I did not miss anyone. If I did, you are probably a long-time sub. I see Lewas is in there with 43 months, so you've heard thank you a number of times. So, but I very much appreciate it, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks ever so much, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye for now.